Welcome, welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out. Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. And wherever you're watching this from, wherever you're catching this, please make sure to hit the like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share this link. Help me to get it out there. That way, new people can find me. That is the best way to, get the word because they're not suggesting us on a lot of these platforms. Tonight, I have got one hell of a show, and this one is going to be really fun. Actually, tonight we're going to have a good time. We're going to be talking about extraterrestrials. This is part 3 of the end of the simulation series. And, you know, tonight we're going to be talking about, the possible creation of humanity by these entities, whether you believe they come from, another star system, whether you believe they are interdimensional, biological entities. We're going to delve into a lot of different things. We're going to be looking at firsthand accounts, things that have been released, from Roswell and, different government documents pertaining to extraterrestrials and the nature of unidentified flying objects, or as it's now called, unidentified aerial phenomena. And we're going to be looking at non-human entities, and we've got some really cool shit. So we've got a letter from one of the nurses that allegedly was involved in the Roswell incident and actually was taking care of the one sole survivor from the Roswell crash. And she goes into, when we read the letter, you're going to see it. It's amazing. She goes into documenting the questions that the military was asking this alien, and how it communicated with her telepathically, right? And you're going to see there's just really cool and amazing insights, whether you're a believer or not in all of this. I do think that it's very relevant to today, right? Especially within our culture. It's almost a, like a cult when it comes to the UFO shit. People have formed religions around these things. Whether it's them saying they are channeling messages from ETs, from, other galaxies and star systems, and, they are guiding us to higher consciousness or the development of humanity, and its soul force in some way, shape, form, or facet. Or it's looking at firsthand accounts of people that through their experiences were absolutely fucking terrified and traumatized from the things that they experience when it pertains to these beings, to people that worked within the military that were afraid for their lives, right? When it comes to divulging this information, but knew the gravity and the importance of it to such an extent that, they waited till they were on their deathbeds, obviously. And then they finally come out with this because they knew that humanity needed to know. The people, the masses, the population needed to know, and that it was utmost importance to our future as a species, and that maybe our reality is not what we think it is. A matter of fact, maybe we live in a very controlled environment and we're not in charge at all. And these beings not only created us, but have genetically altered us and have been watching or monitoring our growth and development, for uh, a very long time, And as you're going to see in some of these interviews, they don't see Earth as ours, right? They see it as theirs, And a lot of the time, you're gonna see that their interest isn't so much in human beings, but it's what we are doing to the earth or what we are doing to ourselves, right? And they have no fear of us in any way, shape, or form. But you'll see a lot of the people that were dealing with them, and their hidden motives, from our military and what they were trying to accomplish. We know this, right? With the reverse engineering of their technology and the weaponry, um, you know, and I think it was a no go for a lot of these beings, right? We're going to be looking at uh, alleged leaked photos and videos of alien bodies. Um, Now, some of the photos said that they came from the KGB, right? And they come out, some of them, from our very own government here in the good old US of A. And like I said, we're going to be looking at official documents too from the United States, uh, and what they have, done as far as publicly, researching into this. And you see that there is this movement for disclosure now, and I feel like I'm not really doing it justice on just how fucking out there tonight's show is going to be. I mean, I have put this together. I have a mountain of research, so I mean, let's go ahead and get into it. I mean, and if you guys enjoy my content, you enjoy my work. Make sure to follow me on social media. You can do that at Best Damn Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, The Real Best Damn over on Twitter. Got a couple YouTube channels, a couple Facebook accounts, TikTok, all that good stuff. The links are in the description. And if you like the lives and you're interested in some of the upcoming guests that we have, we're going to be having Gary Parker back for a second round, which if you guys remember, one of my favorite interviews ever. Gary Parker actually um, said he had contact with the Anunnaki, right? And he had this amazing message that he had found in the sands of the Great Pyramid, and he did his rounds, for years, going on coast to coast, and all of these different shows, and channels, because of what he discovered was so profound. Well, he's coming back, and he's going to be talking about Gobekli Tepe. We have author Guy Crittenden coming up, Ali Siadatan or Siadatan. I always mispronounce his name, but he did the UFOs, Angels, and Gods documentary. That's incredibly, or was incredibly popular there for years. Was really groundbreaking in that. Dr. Harvey Kaplan, nuclear physicist. So we've got some really cool people coming up. So um, and if you guys enjoy that, consider donating and supporting to the channel. You can do that by going to PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger Pay, or joining us over on Patreon. And we're about $100 short of the monthly goal. So all your gifts are appreciated. Let's go ahead and jump into this. And like I said, share this with your friends because it really does help us to get it out there. So, hey, everybody. Nice to see you. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up too if you're in the chat. This one's going to be wild as fuck. I'm serious. It's going to be pretty crazy. This is when I was actually doing the research for this one, uh I was just giddy. I couldn't wait to share it with people. So, we're going to be looking at different alien races and all kinds of shit. So, let's start here. This is 1947 Roswell AI interview or alien interview, excuse me, alien interview. And this is Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, right? And uh, this author, who wrote these books, got a letter from Miss McElroy, right? And let's see if we can get some of the right here. I'll give you just a little of the background before we jump into the letter. And I'm telling you, this is fucking wild. So, Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, since I have never met Mrs. McElroy in person and spoke with her over the phone only for about, and guys, let me know if the sound is good and the video is good and all that good shit in the chat. That really would help me if you guys could tell me if my sound is good and the audio and video is good. Let me know about that, guys. I would appreciate that if you're in the chat. But here we go. Thank you so much, Jane. I appreciate that. And like I said, hit that thumbs up. That gets more people into the chat. So here we go. The biographical information. Since I have never met Mrs. McElroy in person and spoke with her over the phone only once for about 20 minutes, I cannot vouch personally for her as a credible source of information. In fact, I cannot factually substantiate that such a person actually existed, except that I did speak with her on the phone and I received a handwritten material in the mail, which was sent from a physical address in Ireland. When I spoke to her on the phone in 1998, I was living in Florida. At the time of our brief phone interview, Mrs. McElroy lived on Scotty Pride Drive in Glasgow, Montana. I knew this because I mailed a copy of my book, The Oz Factors, to her as a gift after it was published in 99. I'm sure she received the book because she refers to it by name in the letter I received from Ireland and says that she read it. I did a little research on the internet about Glasgow, Montana for my own interest, and Glasgow was founded in 1887 as a railroad town that became popular during the 1930s because President FDR requested that Fort Peck Dam be constructed there, which became a huge source of employment for the Glasgow area. In the 60s, the population flourished up to 12,000, and because of Glasgow Air Force Base, which was used during the Vietnam conflict and the earlier part of the Cold War. The base was deactivated and closed in 1969. When I talked to Mrs. McElroy on the phone, she mentioned she had been relocated there by the U.S. Air Force after her service was completed, and that's where she met her husband, who was an engineer. I don't think she mentioned his first name. However, he worked on a building in the Fort Peck Dam, which created the massive Fort Peck Lake. Although the dam was finished in 40, uh, he was a great fisherman and outdoorsman, so he stayed in the area. I gather that the Irish heritage of the place had something to do with it, but didn't pursue the point with her. I contacted her during my research because I was led to believe through a very circuitous line of investigation that this woman was suspected of having been involved with alien contact at Area 51 or the Roswell crash site or something similar. Now, we're going to go ahead and skip to the letter, right? She was in the Air Force. She's a nurse. Um, and she allegedly was not just a witness to the Roswell crash and all of that, she actually administered aid to the one surviving extraterrestrial. So here is the letter. And this is fucking mind blowing. I'm telling you, this is great. August 12th, 2007. Dear Lawrence, I'm typing this letter to you on my old Underwood typewriter that I bought after I was discharged from the Army. Somehow it seems like a fitting contrast to the subject of this letter and the documents you will find enclosed in this envelope. The last time I spoke to you was about 8 years ago. During your brief telephone interview with me, you asked me to assist you with the research for the Oz Factors book you were writing because you suspected that I might know something that would help your investigation into the possibility that extraterrestrial beings may have influenced the history of Earth. When we spoke, I told you that I did not have any information that I could share with you about anything. Since then, I've read your book and found it very interesting and compelling. You are obviously a man who's done his homework and who could understand my own experiences. I've been thinking a lot about your allusion to the old philosopher whom you paraphrased in our phone conversation. With great power comes great responsibility. Although I don't think power is pertinent in my life or to my reasons for sending you the enclosed documents, you certainly did get me thinking about my responsibility. I have reconsidered my position for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my realization that you were right. I do have a responsibility to myself, at least. I cannot possibly tell you the personal hell of ethical irresolution and spiritual ambivalence I have endured since 1947. I do not want to keep playing the game of maybe I should have or maybe I shouldn't have through the rest of eternity. Many men have been killed to extinguish the possibility of revealing the knowledge I have helped to withhold from society until now. Only a small handful of people on earth have seen and heard what I have had the burden of keeping secret for 60 years. All those years, I thought that I had been entrusted with a great deal of confidence by the powers that be and our government, although I have often felt that power is greatly misguided to protect mankind from the certain knowledge that not only do intelligent extraterrestrial life forms exist, but they have and continue to aggressively monitor and invade the lives of everyone on Earth every day. Therefore, I think the time has come to pass along my secret knowledge to someone I think will understand it. I don't think it would be responsible of me to take the knowledge I have into the silent afterlife, beyond reach or recognition. I think there is a greater good to be served than protecting the vested interest for whom this information is considered a matter of national security, whatever that means, and is therefore justification for making it top secret. Also, I'm now 83 years old. I've decided to leave this body, which has outlasted its usefulness to me, using a painless method of self administered euthanasia. I have a very few months to live and nothing to fear or lose. So you got to think, she's basically saying, like, I'm 83. I've already planned my exit strategy here on Earth, right? And I'm taking off, right? I've held this secret to protect the powers that be, you know, basically all of my life, and it's such a heavy burden. And once you get into this, which she gets into it in just a second, um, you're gonna see why she held this for such a long time. There is no doubt in my mind that if this lady is legit and she truly did what she says she's done, witnessed what she says she's witnessed, they would have, unalived her ass in a quick second for witnessing. And I'm surprised that they didn't anyways, right? Just to seal up any loose ends. But uh who knows? She is using a pen name and all of that. So as far as like the credibility goes, I'm gonna leave that to you. And I do want to ask everybody, and this is just something we do on this channel and always have. It's like keep an open mind, right? Don't go into this, with a preconceived notion about shit, right? Let your mind be open to the information and see where it takes you. And it's like, if anything, if you think it's bullshit at the end, after you've absorbed it and kind of digested it and critically thought about it all, then so be it, right? But there's something to it that really grabbed me, when I read this, and that's why I want to present it now. So I will not die far from the great mound. At Noth and Douth, the fairy mound of darkness. These are sacred cairns or massive stone structures that were erected about 3700 BC and engraved with indecipherable hieroglyphs about the same time as the pyramids and other inexplicable stone monuments were being built all over the earth. I am also not far from the Hill of Tara. That was once the ancient seat of power in Ireland, where 142 kings are said to have reigned in prehistoric and historic times. In ancient Irish religion and mythology, this was a sacred place of the dwelling for the gods and was the entrance to the other world. St. Patrick came to Terra to conquer the ancient religion of the pagans. He may have suppressed the religious practices in the area, but he certainly did not have any impact on the gods who brought these civilizations to Earth, as you will discover when you read the documents enclosed. Therefore, this is a fitting location for my departure from this unholy world and final release from the burdens of this life. The crystal clear perspective of hindsight has revealed a higher purpose to me, assisting the survival of the planet, all living beings and life forms in our galaxy. The status quo of our government establishment has been to protect the people from knowledge of such matters. In fact, the only protection afforded by ignorance and secrecy is to hide the private agenda of those in power to enslave others, and by doing so, to disarm every perceived enemy and ally through superstition and stupidity. Therefore, I've enclosed the original and only existing copies of my personal notes and reflections on a matter which I've kept hidden from everyone, even my own family. I've also enclosed my copies of typed transcripts created by the stenographer who transcribed all of my interviews with the alien saucer pilot after each interview was finished. I do not have any copies of the tape recordings that were made of my interview reports. No one until now knows that I was able to secretly retain copies of the official interview transcripts. Now I'm entrusting these documents to your discretion to impart to the world in any form or manner you see fit. Now, we're going to go down to where she actually jumps into this. All right, here we go. As you know, in July 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Bomb Group had recovered a crashed flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, sparking intense media interest. Later that same day, the commanding general of the 8th Air Force stated that the Major Jesse Marcel, who was involved with the original recovery of the debris, had recovered only the tattered remnants of a weather balloon. The true facts of the incident have been suppressed by the United States government since then. You may not know that I was enlisted in the U.S. Women's Army Air Force Medical Corps, which was a part of the U.S. Army back then. I was assigned to the 509th Bomb Group as a flight nurse at the time of the incident. When the news that there had been a crash was received at the base, I was asked to accompany Mr. Cabot, the counterintelligence officer, to the crash site as the driver of his vehicle, and to render any needed emergency medical assistance to any survivors if necessary. Therefore, I briefly witnessed the wreckage of an alien spacecraft, as well as the remains of the several alien personnel aboard the craft who were already dead. And uh, we are also tonight too, just besides the images and videos of the leaked alien bodies, we are also going to look at leaked documents of microbiologists that are talking about extraterrestrial biological organisms and their biology. So I'm telling you, this one's going to be cool. So stick with me. None of the other personnel present could communicate with the survivor, as the being did not communicate verbally or by any recognizable signs. However, while I examined the patient for injuries, I immediately detected and understood that the alien being was attempting to communicate with me by mental images or telepathic thought, which projected directly from the mind of the being. I immediately reported this phenomenon to Mr. Cabot, as no other person present could perceive these thoughts, and the alien seemed able and willing to communicate with me. It was decided after a brief consultation with a senior officer that I would accompany the survivor alien back to the base. Now, this was partly due to the fact that I was a nurse and, well, could attend to the physical needs of the alien as well as serve as a non threatening communicator and companion. After all, I was the only woman at the site and the only one who was not armed. I was thereafter assigned permanently to serve as a companion of the alien at all times. Now, this is where it gets juicy, y'all. This is some good shit. Now, my duty was to communicate with and interview the alien. And I will try to drop links to the books and text and all of that good shit uh, in the comment section after the live show is over. And I have posted like the images and stuff like that on Facebook and my social media platforms if you want to go check them out for yourself afterwards. So my duty was to communicate with and interview the alien and to make a complete report of all that I discovered to command authorities. Subsequently, I was supplied with specific list of questions provided to me by military and non-military personnel, which I was to interpret for the alien now and record the responses to the questions provided. I also accompany the alien at all times during medical testing and the many other examinations to which the alien was subjected by staff from numerous government agencies. I was given a promotion in rank to senior master sergeant to improve my security rating and to increase my pay grade from $54 a month to $138 a month. Damn, that's a huge fucking jump, especially for back then. Now, for this very unusual assignment, I performed these duties from July 7th through August 1947, at which time the alien died or departed the body, as you will read about in my notes. Now, although I was never left entirely alone with the alien, as there were always military personnel, intelligence agency people, and a variety of other officials present from time to time, I did have uninterrupted access to and communication with the alien being for nearly 6 weeks. Hereinafter is an overview and summary of my personal recollections of conversations with the alien craft pilot, whom I came to know by the identity of Errol. Errol. I wonder. I would almost guarantee that that is some sort of acronym for something, right? Errol. Alien something, whatever, right? If you guys can figure out what the name of the acronym is, put it into the chat or leave it in the comment section. I'm interested to see what you guys can come up with. Now, I feel that it is my duty at this time, in the best interest of the citizens of Earth, to reveal what I've learned from my interaction with Errol. During those 6 weeks on the anniversary of her death or departure 60 years ago, although I served as a nurse in the Army Air Force, I am not a pilot or technician. Further, I did not have any direct contact with the spacecraft or other materials recovered from the crash site at the time or thereafter. To that degree, it must be taken into consideration that my understanding of the communications I had with Errol are based on my own subjective ability to interpret the meaning of the thoughts and mental images I was able to perceive. So you got to think, right? The alien doesn't speak, right? It don't have a language. I don't even know if this motherfucker had a mouth, right? I I forget. She will describe that here in just a moment. You know, she goes through the list and gives its responses. It gets really great. um, but it communicated, you know, telepathically, and you're going to be blown away at just the depth of the being and its competence and its abilities and their culture and you know the answers are not what I think especially the United States government and humans wanted to hear. You know, you're going to see that in just a moment. um, but the being did not need food, water, you know, heat, cold, nothing, right? And it basically created the body as like it's a conscious interdimensional entity, and they create those bodies as like avatars just to navigate our world and probably interact with us on some, you know, some level. So it's wild. Now, our communication did not consist of spoken language in the conventional sense. Indeed, the body of the alien had no mouth through which to speak, which is fucking creepy, right? Um, our communication was by telepathy. At first, I could not understand Errol very clearly. I could perceive images, emotions, and impressions, but it was difficult for me to express these verbally. Once Errol learned the English language, she was able to focus her thoughts more precisely using symbols and meanings of words I could understand. Learning the English language was done as a favor to me. It was more for my own benefit than hers. So you got to imagine, like, um, the telepathy, and in my opinion, and I'll show you. Let's go to the leaked photos. These are the alleged leaked photos of the extraterrestrials, right? Hold on, here we go. And what's strange about here they are, right here. What's strange about these is that they do, and let's pull them up here bigger. Just want to do the stills. Hold on. Yeah, here they go. Right here. So what you'll see with these, and these are alleged leaked images of grays, right? And as you can tell, and I believe they came from UAP One on X. So you guys can go look him up, get the source for yourself, or check out my Twitter account. I did post them there, and I post them here on Facebook, obviously as well. But these are the alleged leaked photos, and you can see right here the entity does not have a mouth. Right? It does not have a mouth. So this, and in this one, it's weird. Look, this reminds me of the Betty and Barney Hill. You guys remember the hypnotic regression that they did? And Barney Hill was describing the extraterrestrials, right? And he locked eyes with them, in their ship. And maybe we can play that clip. And when he locked eyes with them, they had like a black outfit on or something. You can see in this one, the dude's got a cloak on, right? He's got a cloak on, so let's see if I can just play that little clip right there so you can hear it, like, just to kind of, and we're going to look at, an alien interview and all kinds of stuff. We're going to make all this, kind of come together so we get a real, a real picture of this, right? Here we go. Hold on. Betty and Barney Hill. Here we go. Here's the Barney Hill one. Let's see if we can get to where.
Of not light, just one huge light, and rows of windows like a commercial plane. Rows
Here
of
we go.
windows. They're not like a commercial plane because they curve around to the size of this pancake, and I say, my God, no. I have to shake my head. I got to, it can't be true. This isn't there. Oh, it's still there. And I look up and down the road. Can't somebody come and tell me this is not there? It can't be.
And remember, he's doing a hypnotic regression. So this isn't him actually talking. This is his subconscious talking. So these are his thoughts coming out in real time. He's like, can't somebody tell me it's not there? His mind is in fucking disbelief. And it's seeing this saucer-like craft. And we're not going to play the whole thing, but I just want to kind of confirm that the images of what we've seen, with the description of what Matilda's seen and all of this, like, to kind of make it all, to give you the full gambit of this. Now, here he goes looking at this thing. He locks eyes with the guy, and this is where it gets wild.
And oh, you're still asleep, but you can see it all clearly. It's there. You're sure it's there? Yeah. You weren't having a dream? It's there. You'd had no sleep that evening? I touch my right arm. It's not my right, it's my left arm. And then I touch my right arm, and it is my left arm. I'm confused. You're clear now. You're relaxed.
And I think when he's doing that, when he's touching his right arm and his left arm, to me, these beings have already got a hold of his brain. And they're trying to figure out, or not figure out, but they're like accessing, because your right and your left operates the different sides of your brain. And to me, it makes sense of them like trying to literally make sure they are in control of the parts of the mind they want to. So they're like checking, like, oh, this is the right side, this is the left side.
It's still there. If I let my binoculars
Here we go.
and dangle from my neck and then start over again, maybe it won't be there. But it is. Why? What do they want? What do they want? One person looks friendly. He's friendly looking, and he's looking at me over his right shoulder, and he's smiling. But that. Could you see him clearly? Yes, I thought. What's his face like? What does it make you think of? It's round. I think of a redhead Irishman. I don't know why, but I think I know why. Because Irish are usually hostile to Negroes. And when I see a friendly Irish person, I react to it by thinking I will be friendly. And I think this one that is looking over his shoulder is friendly. You say looking over his shoulder. Was he facing away from you? Yes, he was facing.
And see, and this is the thing with the telepathy thing, and we're going to go back to the other interview. When he says that it was a red-headed Irishman, I want you to kind of understand, and you're going to see in the other interview, that just because that's what his brain like came up with, that doesn't mean that's what the being actually even looked like. See, with the telepathy, from what I've gathered, from my studies, it's instead of them actually doing word to word with you, like talking in your mind, like, John, go to the door and turn the doorknob, right? Like, they don't speak like that. You would see images relative to your understanding of the things. They would send you images. So when he's seeing the red-headed Irishman, right? It's him. It's a pale being, obviously, and it's him feeling threatened, right? Because the thing's pretending to be friendly, right? And he's correlating that to, you know, what's normally hostile to him in his day-to-day life. And that's, because he's even saying, like, what do they want if I drop my binoculars over and over again, right? Like, maybe they'll go away. And we'll play about one more minute of this, and we'll go back to the other interview.
In the wall, and you saw him through this window, or you said there was a row of windows? It was a row of windows, just a huge row of windows, only divided by struts or structures that prevented it from being one solid window. Or then it would have been one solid window. Mm. And the evil face.
Evil face.
He looks like a German Nazi.
Looks like a German Nazi.
Did he have on a uniform? Yes. What kind of uniform? It was black. He had a black scarf around his neck, dangling over his left shoulder. You pointed it out as if it were on you. I never noticed that before. He had a black scarf on his neck. How could you see these figures so clearly at that distance? I was looking at him with binoculars. Oh. Mm-hmm. Did they have faces like other people? You say one reminded you of a red-headed Irishman. His eyes were slanted. I see it. So his eyes were slanted, but not like a Chinese. What was Betty doing all this time? I'm not close to her. I don't know. You're out there by yourself now? You don't think of her. Is she saying anything? I can't hear her. Did you make any outcry to her, the way you did to me? I can't remember. I don't know. I did not. You would remember it if you did. I did not. But I know this creature, this leader is telling me something. He's telling you something. How? How is he getting it to you? I can see it in his face. Do you see his lips move? Yes. No, his lips aren't moving. Yes, go on. He's telling you. And he's looking at me. What did he tell you? Stay there and keep looking. Just keep looking and stay there. And just keep looking. Just keep looking. Could you hear him tell you? Oh, I got to pull these binoculars away from my eyes. Because if I don't, I'll just keep staying there. Could you hear him tell you this? Oh, no, he didn't say it. You felt he said it. I know. You know he said it. Just there, yeah. Just stay there, he's saying to me. All right. I'll dig in my head. Just pull the binoculars away. God, give me strength. All right. Pull them down. Run! Pull these binoculars down and run. God, if they were God, give me strength. I gotta get away. Oh, Betty. All right. We gotta get away, Betty. All right. Calm down. Calm down. I'm driving. I gotta get away. How could you be sure he was telling you this? Calm down. You're still asleep.
So, when, to me, when people, and you're going to see too, when it starts to get into the questions, These fucking things, man, I don't think they're good. I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I had an experience myself years and years ago. And I haven't really ever like talked about it because I didn't want, you know, people to think I was crazier than I already am. Um, and I sensed and felt pure evil. Uh, And when you hear him and he's in hypnotic regression, this is the subconscious. He's got the binoculars to his eyes, and the bean's got him. Like I said, when he's tapping his right and left side, the bean's checking, I believe, which to see which side of his brain and all of that. They're using some sort of technology or telepathy, and he's saying, like, he's telling me, he's like, oh, I know he's telling me, right? Like his eyes, by looking into those fucking creepy hollowed out eyes. And then you see these images, right? He's talking about it's wearing some fucking black Nazi gear, and you see the cloak on the other one. She's talking about it has no mouth, right? And I'm not saying these images are legit. And it just recently came out, but I am saying they're crazy, right? Because they do seem to substantiate a couple different experiences. And he was terrified. God, give me the strength. He couldn't pull the binoculars down. He's like, he wanted to run. He was terrified. And things like, just keep looking. Just keep looking. As they snatched his ass up. Right? So, and that's deep, deep ass trauma. Right? Like, you walk away from those experiences not knowing what in the fuck just happened. You don't. You're questioning reality. You're questioning everything because it's impossible in your mind for this to happen, and the power they wield over us. Uh, it's it is the most helpless feeling that you will ever feel in your life. You know, and then you hear these people uh, that talk about these channeled messages, and it's like, God damn, it's like you idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. You know, no idea. It's like these people are just making shit up, and maybe they are channeling something. Um, but I believe they are being incredibly deceived. You know, it's like allowing these entities access to us, and then you know, regurgitating and pushing their message on everybody. And it's like trying to condition all of us that they're here to help us and all of this. And it's like anybody who's had a real fucking experience was terrified. Terrified. And when they looked into these beings' eyes, they seen pure evil. You know, they abduct us. They don't ask us to come on the ship kindly, politely. They abduct us and paralyze us to where we can't move. We can't think. We can't do anything but what they say, and they do fucking psychotic experiments on us and torture us, wipe our memory, and throw us back on Earth. It's like Bob Lazar when he was talking about, this secret religion uh, that the ETs have, and that they just call us vessels, right? We're just energy vessels. Now back to the interview. Um, I want to, I'm trying to weave it all together here. So by the end of our interview sessions, increasingly since then, I have become more comfortable with telepathic communication. Remember, telepathy is the images, right? It's not words. So I have become more adept to understanding Errol's thoughts as though they are my own. Somehow her thoughts become my thoughts. Her emotions are my emotions. However, this is limited by her willingness and intention to share her own personal universe with me. She is able to be selective about what communication I am allowed to receive from her. Likewise, her experience, training, education, and relationships and purposes are uniquely her own. This is the symbol of the domain. And you're going to see, um, looks kind of like Star Trek or something, but you're going to see like the domain. So the domain is a race or civilization of which Errol, the alien I interviewed, is an officer, pilot, and engineer serving in the domain expeditionary force. The symbol represents the origin and unlimited boundary of the known universe, united and integrated into a vast civilization under the control of the domain. And you know what it makes me think of? The domain? Principalities, powers, and dominions, right? And domains, right? Demons. Domain, demons. Legion. Please accept this material and make it known to as many people as possible. Oh, Arrow is sorry about that. Arrow is currently stationed at a base in the asteroid belt, which she refers as a space station in the solar system of Earth. First and foremost, Arrow is herself. Secondarily, she voluntarily serves as an officer, pilot, and engineer in the domain expeditionary force. In that capacity, she has duties and responsibilities, but she is at leave to come and go as she pleases also. Please accept this material and make it known to as many people as possible. I repeat that it is not my intention to endanger your life with the possession of this material, nor do I really expect you to believe any of it either. However, I do sense that you can appreciate the value that such knowledge may have to those who are willing and able to face the reality of it. Mankind needs to know the answers to questions which are contained in these documents. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose on Earth? Is mankind alone in the universe? And if there is intelligent life elsewhere, why have they not contacted us? It is vital that people understand the devastating consequences to our spiritual and physical survival if we fail to take effective action to undo the long standing and pervasive effects of alien intervention on Earth. In this part right here, right? She talks about how nice this fucking alien is, right? How close and how cool she is with it, right? They're homies. And then she drops this, right? This domain, and watch when they get into it, right? This alien is like, nah, we're running shit. It's vital that people understand the devastating consequences to our spiritual and physical survival if we fail to take effective action to undo the long-standing and pervasive effects of alien intervention on Earth. That means she believed they fucked us up, right? Their genetic alterations, they have enslaved us. We are spiritual and physical slaves, cattle to them, right? To me, and when you see as we go deeper, she talks about, she basically calls herself a watcher, right? And we know who the watchers are, right? The ones who intervened when they weren't supposed to. They're the fallen. Now, perhaps the information in these documents will serve as a stepping stone to a better future for mankind. I hope that you can be more clever, creative, and courageous in the distribution of this information than I have been. May the gods bless you and keep you. Mrs. Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, Senior Master Sergeant, Women's Army Air Force Medical Corps, retired. Now, here's the interview with the alien. This is when it gets really great. And before we dive into this piece of it, like I said, keep an open mind. Okay, see, I have really, truly, genuinely believed that the alien shit was a big deception. I have. I believed it wholeheartedly until recently, you know. Um, and it's not that I don't believe entities exist. I just don't believe in the concept that we're given through the mainstream and popular culture, right? Secular beliefs, right? I believe we don't. They're not coming from fucking far out galaxies and shit like that. Like they're probably right from here. They probably built here. They're probably the ones who altered our telomeres, blinded us through our senses and everything. Um, and I believe they harvest us for our soul force, our energy, loosh, whatever you want to call it. I believe they are parasitic entities. When it talks about the Anunnaki, which those from the heavens came, and we will look at some religious texts and all that. I can't, I always got to hit my ancient texts. I've got about 1 billion to dive into tonight. This is going to be a long one. What you will notice is that, they made us as a slave race to mine gold. And I've talked about this a lot on the channel that, so in essence, those from the heavens came, these sky beings, right, who came from outer space, right? And the Bible talks about these different entities and not to trust them, right? Don't worship the stars, right? The stars are heavenly hosts, they're luminaries, they're angels. The ones that come from the Pleiades and all of this, the Bible says, do not fuck with them. It says it flat out. Do not fuck with them. The ones from Orion, the ones from the Pleiades, they're not cool. And that serpent in the garden is these reptilian fucks, in my opinion. That deceived us and tricked us, trapping our consciousness into this place. And we're trapped, We're trapped. And you'll see why they came is because Operation Fishbowl, we were trying to bust out of this bitch, right? And it brought them down here. Now, by the time the alien had been returned to the base, I had already spent several hours with her. Now, as I mentioned, Mr. Cabot told me to stay with the alien. Since I was the only person among us who could understand her communication, I could not understand my ability to communicate with the being. I had never before that time experienced telepathic communication with anyone. The nonverbal communication I experienced was like the understanding you might have when a child or a dog is trying to get you to understand something, but much, much more direct and powerful. Even though there were no words spoken or signs made, the intention of the thoughts were unmistakable to me. I realized later that although I had received the thought, I did not necessarily interpret its meaning exactly. I think that the alien being was not willing to discuss technical matters due to the nature of her position as an officer and pilot with the duty to maintain the security and confidentiality required by her own unit or organization. Any soldier who is captured by the enemy, and we're described as the enemy, in the line of duty has a responsibility to withhold vital information, even in the face of interrogation or torture, of course. But in spite of that, I have always felt that the alien being was not really trying to hide anything from me. I just never got that feeling. Her communication was always seemed honest and sincere to me. But I suppose you could never know for sure. I definitely feel that I shared a unique bond with the alien. It was a kind of trust or empathy that you have with a patient or a child. I think this is because the alien could understand that I was really interested in her and had no harmful intention, nor would I allow any harm to come to her if I could prevent it. This was true too. I refer to the alien as her. Actually, the being was not sexual in any way, either physiologically or psychologically. She did have a rather strong feminine presence and demeanor. However, in terms of physiology, the being was asexual and had no internal or external reproductive organs. Her body was more like the body of a doll or robot. There were no internal organs, as the body was not constructed of biological cells. It did have a kind of circuit system or electrical nervous system that ran throughout the body, but I could not understand how it worked. Now, this kind of really, it gets, my antennas up when it talks about this, circuit tree within the body, right? Their nervous system is like a circuit system. They have no reproductive organs. They're asexual. Like I said, I believe this is just a vessel, an avatar, right? In order for them to engage in the physical world. And the way they describe it in here as we go through, she says that she literally, this entity, which she refers to as feminine, uh, but it's not a girl, it's just divine feminine, actually, right? Um, that which kind of, it's kind of like, to me, it's like the Scarlet Woman, the Whore of Babylon. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. Um, but anyways, she describes that she created that vessel out of consciousness, right? Created the vessel out of consciousness, which in essence is what we do here as well. But they are aware of their conscious creation and the ability to withdraw that consciousness at any time they want. They're in tune with both halves, as we are segregated from our consciousness, right? We're just trapped in the vessel down here, right? As they're fucking sucking our energy down, you know. Uh and that it was just to navigate in the physical world, right? And she calls herself a spiritual being. She's like, so there was no need for, reproduction or anything like that, right? Now, in stature and appearance, the body was quite short and petite, about 40 inches tall. The head was disproportionately large relative to arms, legs, and torso, which were thin. There were 3 fingers on each 2 hands and feet, which were somewhat prehensile. The head had no operational nose or mouth or ears. I understand that a space officer does not need these, as a space has no atmosphere to conduct sound. Therefore, no sound related sensory organs are not built into the body. Nor does the body need to consume food, hence the absence of a mouth. And, bro, I'm telling you, look, you know, whether you believe this shit or not, I'm just saying, like, I keep going back to it. Right. Now, the eyes were quite large. I was never able to determine the exact degree of visual acuity of which the eyes were capable, but I observed that her sense of sight must have been extremely acute. I think the lenses of the eyes, which were very dark and opaque, may have also been able to detect waves or particles beyond the visual spectrum of light. They could probably see auras and everything. We see 0.00135% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. We're fucking blind, right? We're blind. We don't see infrared, ultraviolet, nothing. We don't see shit, right? So, we're completely oblivious to 99.999% of the universe. And I believe her eyes she captures the full gambit, right, of everything. When the being looked at me, her gaze seemed to penetrate right through me, as though she had X-ray vision. I found this a little embarrassing at first until I realized that she had no sexual intentions. In fact, I don't think she ever had the thought that I was male or female. It became very obvious after a short time with the being that her body did not require oxygen, food, or water, or any other external source of nutrition or energy. As I learned later, this being supplied her own energy, which animated and operated the body. It seemed a little bit eerie at first, but I got used to the idea. It's really a very, very simple body. There's not much to it compared to our own bodies. Errol explained to me that it was not mechanical like a robot, nor was it biological. It is animated directly by her as a spiritual being. Technically, from a medical standpoint, I would say that Errol's body could not even be called alive. Her doll body is not a biological life form with cells and so forth. It had a smooth skin or covering, which was gray in color. The body was highly tolerant to changes in temperature, atmospheric conditions, and pressure. The limbs were quite frail without musculature. In space, there is no gravity, so very little muscle strength is needed. The body was used almost entirely on spacecraft or in low or no gravity environments. Since Earth has a heavy gravity, the body was not able to walk around very well as the legs were not really suited to that purpose. The feet and hands were quite flexible and agile, however. Overnight, before my first interview with the alien, the area had been transformed into a buzzing hive of activity. There were a dozen men working on setting up lights and camera equipment. A motion picture camera and microphone and a tape recorder was there also to set up in the interview room. I don't understand why a microphone was needed since there was no verbal communication possible with the alien. There was also a stenographer and several people busily typing on typewriters. Now, I was informed that an expert foreign language interpreter and a code breaking team had been flown to the base during the night to assist with my efforts to communicate with the alien. There was also several medical personnel specialists in various fields to examine the alien. And a professor of psychology was there to help formulate questions and interpret the answers, as I was just a nurse. I was not considered to be a qualified interpreter, even though I was the only one there who could understand anything the alien was thinking. There were many subsequent conversations between us. Each interview resulted in an exponential increase and understanding between us, as I will later discuss in my notes. This is the first transcript with the answers to a list of questions provided to me by the intelligence officer at the base, which I debriefed to the stenographer immediately following the interview. And this is the official transcript of the interview. And if you guys in the chat, that's weird. If you guys in the chat could hit the like for me, hit the thumbs up. Hit the like for me, hit the thumbs up. It's weird. I don't know if people didn't get the notification or what. Strange. All right, here we go. Question: Are you injured? Answer: No. Question: What medical assistance do you require? Answer: None. Question: Do you need food or water or other sustenance? Answer: No. Question: Do you have any special environmental needs, such as air temperature, atmospheric chemical content, air pressure, or waste elimination? Answer: No. I am not a biological being. Question: Does your body or spacecraft carry any germs or contamination that may be harmful to humans or other Earth life forms? Answer: No. No germs in space. Question: Does your government know you are here? Answer: Not at this time. Question: Are others of your kind going to come looking for you? Answer: Yes. Question: What is the weapons capability of your people? Answer: Very destructive. I did not understand the exact nature of the kind of arms or weapons that they may have, but I did not feel that there was any malevolent intention in her reply, just a statement of fact. So she's telling her, "We will fuck you up." Question: Why did your spacecraft crash? Answer: It was struck by an electrical discharge from the atmosphere, which caused us to lose control. Question: Why was your spacecraft in this area? Answer: Investigation of burning clouds, radiation, explosions. So, if you see that, the investigation of burning clouds, radiation, and explosions, it's from us setting off nuclear bombs, right? Nuclear bombs. That's why they came. Question: How does your spacecraft fly? Answer: It is controlled through mind. Responds to thought commands. Mind or thought command are the only English language words I can think of to describe the thought. Their bodies, and I think the spacecraft are connected directly to them through some kind of electrical nervous system that they control with their own thoughts. Question: How do your people communicate with each other? Answer: Through mind, thought. The words mind and thought combined together are the closest English language words I can think of to describe the idea at this time. However, it was very obvious to me that they communicate directly from the mind, as she is communicating with me. Question: Do you have a written language or symbols for communication? Answer: Yes. Question: What planet are you from? Answer: The home, birthplace world of the domain. Since I am not an astronomer, I have no way of thinking in terms of the stars, galaxies, constellations, and directions of space. The impression I received was of a planet in the center of a huge cluster of galaxies that is to her like home or birthplace. The word domain is the closest word I can think of to describe her concept. Images and thoughts about where she is from. It could as easily be called the territory or the realm. However, I am sure that it was not just a planet or a solar system or a cluster of stars, but an enormous number of galaxies. Question: Will your government send representatives to meet with our leaders? Answer: No. Question: Ain't that fucking crazy too? It's just like flat out saying, nah, we're not interested in talking to you. You know, like we're not negotiating. We're not having a fucking meet and greet, a sit down, none of that shit, right? Question: What are your intentions concerning Earth? Answer: Preserve, protect property of the domain. Now, this is kind of, where it gets a little wild, dude, right? They're preserving the property of the domain. So, in essence, what does that mean? It means that we are the property of the domain, right? We are the property, you know? Uh, how about that, right? I'm gonna pop out the chat here where I can see what everybody's saying too, by the way. And if you guys have anything you want to add or comment or anything, just let me know here. All right. Here we go. Get back to this. Yeah, so she's letting them know, right? Preserve and protect the property of the domain. So that means we are the property. Earth is the property of the domain. Question: What have you learned about Earth governments and military installations? Answer: Poor, small, destroy planet. Now, this to me kind of fucks me up, right? Because it's like, what did she mean by that, right? Destroy planet. What does she mean by that? Does she mean that our governments are poor, right? And by small, to me, it doesn't, to me, that means like small in stature or morality, right? Like they're not shit, basically. They're saying they're not shit. Uh, and that they run things very poorly. You know, they're small in stature. Um, and does it mean that they are destroying the planet? Like our governments are destroying the planet, or these ETs intend on destroying the planet? Um, that's kind of pretty wild, right? So, uh, says question: why haven't your people made your existence known to the people of Earth? Answer: watch, observe, no contact. And this is what leads me to believe that they are in fact the Watchers, right? Because it's like their only mission is to watch, right? To watch. So, that to me is the fucking description of the Watchers, right there. I got the impression that contact with people on the earth was not permitted, but I could not think of a word or idea that communicated the impression I got exactly. They're just observing us. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on that shit. What you think? If you're getting what you guys are picking up off of it at this point, right? Like, what you've gleaned from the interview thus far. Question: have your people visited Earth previously? Answer: periodic, repeating observations. Question: how long have you known about Earth? Answer: long before humans. So, right? Long before humans, right? They've been doing this way before our asses was here. Now, I'm not sure if the word prehistoric would be more accurate, but it was definitely a very long period of time before human beings evolved. Question: what do you know about the history of civilization on Earth? Answer: small interest, attention, small time. Mm. So, mm, to me, it's like, and I really like some help interpreting some of these things because, you got to think this is just what she picked up off of this, right? Um, but it says small interest, attention, small time, right? So to me, that's saying like we haven't been around a very long time, right? They don't have, or she doesn't have a lot of interest in what we're doing here, right? So I don't know. The answer to this question seemed very vague to me. However, I perceive that her interest in Earth history is not very strong, or that she did not pay much attention to it. Or maybe, I don't know, I didn't really get an answer to the question. Question: can you describe your home world to us? Answer: place of civilization, culture, history, always. Place of civilization, culture, history, large planet, wealth, resource, always. Order, power, knowledge, wisdom, 2 stars, 3 moons. Hmm. So, and it's like you got to really kind of decipher some of the shit that is being said. Place of civilization, culture, history, large planet, wealth, resources always, order, power, knowledge, and wisdom, 2 stars, and 3 moons. And I believe that the Zeta Reticuli is a binary star system. So, some people believe they are Zetas, the Greys. So who knows, right? Um, Question: what is the state of development of your civilization? Answer: ancient, trillions of years, always, above all others. Plan, schedule, progress, win, high goals, and ideas. Kind of interesting, you know. I use the number trillions because I am sure that the meaning was a number larger than many billions. The idea of the length of time she communicated is beyond me. It's really closer to the idea of infinity in terms of Earth years. Question: do you believe in God? Answer: we think it is. Make it continue always. So to me, she's saying like their thoughts become reality, right? And they are constantly evolving, moving forward civilization. So I guess it's no on God, right? They think really, really fucking highly of themselves, if you ask me. I'm sure that the alien being does not understand the concept of God or worship as we do. I assume that the people in her civilization were all atheists. My impression was that they think very highly of themselves and are very prideful indeed. Question: what type of society do you have? Answer: order, power, future always, control, grow. These are the closest words I could use to describe the idea she had about her own society or civilization. Her emotion when communicating her response to this question became very intense, very bright, and emphatic. Her thought was filled with an emotion that gave me a feeling of jubilation or joy, but it made me very nervous also. That's interesting though, right? Because she's saying, like, when she talked about it, she could feel like the glee and jubilation, but for some reason it was unsettling to her, right? Like, I don't know. Question: are there other intelligent life forms besides yourself in the universe? Answer: everywhere. We are greatest, highest of all. To me, I think they are the Elohim, probably, right? The Watchers, like it sounds like they are, just to keep it real. Due to her small stature, I am sure that she did not mean tallest or biggest. Again, her prideful nature showed through in the feeling I received from her. This was the conclusion of the first interview. When the answers to the first list of questions were typed and given to the people who were waiting for them, they were excited that I was able to get the alien to say anything. However, after they finished reading my answers, they were disappointed that I could not understand more clearly. Now, they had a lot of new questions because of the answers I received to the first list of questions. An officer told me to await further instructions. I waited for several hours in the adjoining office. I was not allowed to continue my interview with the alien. However, I was always well treated and allowed to eat, sleep, and use the restroom facilities whenever I wanted. Eventually, a new list of questions was written for me to ask the alien. I gathered that quite a few other agents, government, and military officials had arrived at the base by this time. They told me that several other people would be in the room with me during the next interview so they could prompt me to ask for more details during the interview. However, when I attempted to conduct the interview with these people in the room, I received no thoughts, emotions, or any other perceptible communication from the alien. Nothing. The alien just sat in a chair without moving. We all left the interview room. The intelligence agent became very agitated about this. He accused me of lying or making up the answers to the first questions. I insisted that my answers were honest and as accurate as I could make them. Later that day, it was decided that several other people would attempt to ask questions of the alien. However, in spite of several attempts by different experts, no one was ever able to get any communication at all from the alien. Over the next several days, a psychic research scientist from back east was flown to the base to interview the alien. Her name was Gertrude something or other. I don't recall the last name. On another occasion, an Indian clairvoyant named Krishnamurti came to the base to try to communicate with the alien. Neither one was successful at getting the alien to communicate anything. I was personally not able to communicate telepathically with either of these people either. Now, although I did think that Mr. Krishnamurti was a very kind and intelligent gentleman. And it's like, she's gonna go on to say, like, that the reason she believes the ET did not communicate with the other people is because you gotta think this fucking thing could read minds, right? Like it could read your thoughts, it can read your intentions, it knows exactly what you're thinking, what you're planning to do. And if you have all these military brass in there, that are thinking of like reverse engineering their technology for weapons and war and, maybe torturing the fucking thing to get answers, like, of course it wasn't going to speak to them. And I hate to say it, but this woman seems very gullible to me. It's like, oh, well, she's bound by duty and all this. It seems like the alien in my opinion, at this point, I don't know, what you guys think about this, but in my opinion, the demeanor um, of the ET is kind of like humans are beneath them, right? Like they're the greatest, they're the pinnacle of creation. It's like, well, I'm not going to answer your questions, right? I'm not worried about you. My people will be back. And if you fuck up, you know, it's on you type shit. We're not gonna tell you nothing. We're not gonna tell you where we're from. We're not gonna tell you how we work. Who are you? You know, uh, like like we are that insignificant on the food chain to them. It's kind of like um the feeling that I get from this, and it's like I feel like she's given this being way more credit, for its kindness and shit like that. And it's like its honesty too. It's like, well, if this thing can unmask all of your thoughts and read all of your thoughts, you don't think it could be deceptive when it's capable to hide its thoughts, its information, but you're not from it, right? So it can read everything from you. You're an open book. It even had x-ray vision. It can penetrate your very soul, right? But it's got a cloak on. You can't penetrate its soul. You only get what it allows you to get. So um, interesting. Finally, it was decided I should be left with the alien to get answers myself. Where am I at? Okay. And before we jump into the second interview, these are alleged images from the KGB that were released of ETs. Let's see if we can pull these up here for you guys real quick. Right here. And I just hit 20K on Facebook. So yeah, go check me out there. So Pretty wild. And these were allegedly from the KGB. I don't know what you guys think of this. Spooky though. Very spooky. Hmm. It's those eyes, man. Those eyes. But it looks like this one has a nose, though, if you can see. Nice. It looks like it's got a nose. So I'd love to know what you guys think about that one. So, and we are going to also, I have the leaked documents somewhere down here, past all the memes. Of the microbiologist that studied the extraterrestrial biological organisms. Here they are. And there's a couple of them that I have. One, I'm not sure. I mean, this one kind of seems a little bit shitty. Uh, so supposedly a NASA worker talking about the technology, and then the other one, is from the late 2000s to the mid 2010s, and this is on Reddit. So some of you guys may be familiar with these. Matter of fact, we'll take a break from the alien interview and we'll read the NASA one first. It says, I worked at NASA and we made contact yesterday. I can't tell you who I am. Um, and I can't tell you the name of the program, but what I can tell you is that if what they say is true, we're in trouble. Now, we didn't make contact in the way you think we would. We didn't beam out an episode of The Office towards Andromeda and hear back from alien critics, and we definitely didn't meet them face to face. We found another way to communicate. We've been working on this technology for a while. Let me see if I can pull up images. Hold on, guys. I have the images somewhere else. Kind of blow them up here. Hold on. All right, here we go. Here we go. Make it a little bigger for you guys. Now, these are just kind of interesting. I thought, why not, right? As a side note, it says, I can't tell you who I am. I can tell you the name of the program. I can't tell you the name of the program, but what I can tell you is that if what they say is true, we're in trouble. Now, we didn't make contact the way you think we would. We didn't beam out an episode of The Office towards Andromeda and hear back from alien critics. And we definitely didn't meet them face to face. We found another way to communicate, something apparently ancient humans had figured out as well. There are countless dilapidated ancient structures. Oops. Countless dilapidated ancient structures around the world, and some of them, not all, but some were communication arrays. At least a handful on each continent. I'm sure you'll be able to think of a few after I describe what we did. And if you think about this, uh, and this is what fucking really kind of gets me too. I don't know why it's not letting me switch photos here. Um, how we essentially, oh, it's going the wrong way. So, uh, if we look at like the ancient pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, the pyramids of Giza, all of these ancient monolithic structures all across the globe. What myself and a million other people have been discovering is that they resemble like motherboards, right? And circuitry, you know. Not only were they more than likely capable uh, through sound frequency of levitation and things of that nature, but harnessing plasma, uh, different energies. They were covered in copper and different conduits for the harnessing of the ethers and the energies there, like I said, the amplification of sound and acoustics. um, a lot of these ancient structures, I've even talked about this, how the vimanas and all of this, those the tips of the vimanas went into the radar for the stealth bombers and shit. So these things are tech technological, right? And a lot of them appear to be created, for giants, which we know, the Nephilim and all of this. Um, and then it kind of makes me think of, this extraterrestrial and having this circuitry, right? This vessel or avatar that was a conduit for energy. Didn't need to eat, sleep, drink, nothing. But it harnessed electricity or energy or the ether to operate, and it was created through the consciousness of the entities, right? And you think about a large civilization that was all harnessing, right? A lot of people believe that pyramids were, uh, you know, harnessing hydrogen and all these other things, right? Hydroelectric energy, right? Power plants, all of this, right? There's a million theories, and I'm sure they're probably all somewhere close to the truth, like, because I believe they were multifunctional and multi-purposed, right? Um, and they covered the ley lines of the earth, right? The energy lines of the earth, and they were aligned with magnetic poles and everything, right? The electromagnetic field of the earth, all of it. Um, and something happened, that seems to like have turned a lot of them to stone. I don't know if all of them were actually stone. I believe that some sort of cataclysm has fossilized these fucking things, and it doesn't take millions of years like we used to think it did, right? Like fossilization can happen very quick, right? Decades even, right? It don't take a long time at all, and especially if you have some sort of tremendous heat or other things like that happen on the earth, and you think about the accounts of the deluge and Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And all of these different Joshua's long day, right? The day the earth stood still, and fucking all of this, man. There's millions of biblical and ancient texts that have these accounts of catastrophic events, right? The Younger Dryas, right? People are finding out all of these different things that have happened to the earth. So that would explain, right, the fossilized remains of these things, and why they're no longer working, but we still see the bare bones and remnants of these things, and that they were electrical in nature. And then think about people like, you know, Gary Parker, right, who describes, El or Abba, right? The being that he spoke to uh, as being like a giant, but like a machine being with like translucent glass and gold and crystal and shit like that, and having billions of souls inside of him, right? Like billions of souls inside of him. And that powers them, and you think about ancient Hebrew and the languages and all of it and how it all seems to kind of correlate to this AI god. And we'll get into this, with like Ahriman and all of these different technological gods, right? These destroyer gods, these, Satan variations. Um, and it feels like, and if you think about like where, the governments of the world, a lot of people believe they've gotten their technology from, right? Back with Eisenhower and all of that through the military industrial complex and all of it. It appears as if they've set our asses up, right? By giving us technology to help harvest our asses, and if you think about why disclosure is such a big deal, right? Why it's such a big deal and why they don't want anybody to know anything about it. And they talked about how it would actually destroy the fabric of society. To me, it makes a lot of sense because if we found that we were food, we were a farm here, right? We lived in like a terrarium, a natural habitat, but an artificial habitat, right? That was made to look natural, like a fish tank, and that we were insignificant in the scale of things. And we were just a slave race engineered specifically to eat, like cattle. It would destroy the world. People would go ape shit. And if we had no control, no escape, no nothing from these beings, right? And think about, the abduction encounters and all of this, right? The way that they move technologically in their chariots or vehicles. Um, and then think about what they do to people when they get a hold of them with their minds and everything, and it kind of really, really starts to sink in that maybe that is the actual reality. And that's what the government is keeping from us. And disclosure isn't even up to the government. Like they don't get to decide when we know that these ETs actually run the governments of the world, and they decide when we know. And because the universe is built off of free will, right? They have to disclose what's happening at the end of the cycles, right? And at the end of the ages as we cycle through the zodiac and all of that. It's like the end of each of these cycles, as our consciousness shifts, we go into high awareness once again, and are almost capable of breaking the chains. They come and wipe us out again, right? And harvest all that energy, harvest all those souls, then recycle it, do it all again, you know. Don't get a say in that. They decide, right? And they leak it out a little bit at a time because it's that devastating to us when we find it out again, right? And then even perhaps, personally, I don't think they would look like these. Well, hey, I'm not I don't know. I don't know. It's a good thought. I mean, I don't know. Uh, Personally, I don't know. I know what I've seen, and they didn't look like um, either one of those from my experience. So the grays were like the typical grays, but they were as tall as men that I've seen. And they had like the smaller ones, but they were more beige brownish color, and they were really, really short, and they were like worker bees, like the 3 foot tall ones, the 40-inch tall ones. Um, so, and maybe one day I'll talk about my encounter and all of that, you know, and do a video on that if people are even interested. But um, and so many people are full of shit. That's why I've never really wanted to share that. It's like too many. Um, but I do believe that they decide how it's rolled out. And you got to think like, imagine piece by piece, and then we find out that the fucking sky. And I was just thinking this earlier today, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, what you think about this, but I can remember as a child our world being different, if that makes sense. And I know this sounds fucking crazy, but I remember like a golden yellow sun. I remember like a real deep blue sky, puffy clouds, and just it was different. It was different. It felt real and genuine and natural. It had a purity to the world. And not just because I was a kid, right? But something has changed over the last decade or so. Like something has changed. And to me, things feel synthetic or artificial. And when I look at the sky, it doesn't look real anymore. It looks dingy and synthetic and dark, and the clouds don't look real. And it's like I'm expecting a fucking computer screen to be behind it all. And it's like I was even wondering if, like, did we actually wipe ourselves out? With CERN, the Large Hadron Collider. Hurricane Tube says, I agree, bro. Yeah, right. See, so I mean, at least I'm not the only one who thinks this shit, And it's like, did we wipe ourselves out? And that whole Mandela effect shit, it's like we shifted realities, and maybe they gave us, and if you look at like the whole Shiva and how CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, is built on the temple of Apollyon or Abaddon, right, which is the destroyer, right? The mascot is Shiva. Um, the logo is 666, right? The opening of the portal, they was doing the Lucifer shit and all of it, right? It's satanic as a motherfucker. But we see ancient depictions of things that look similar to the Large Hadron Collider. And we think about the Atlanteans, and their fall. And I believe it was a fall in consciousness. They destroyed themselves through technology, you know? And these resets appear to happen very often, actually. You look at like the Tartarians and all of this shit. And whether you think they were legit or not, there was a period in time where it looks like we were way more. It looks like we're regressing, not progressing. We're regressing, right? Um, BDP2 anymore? Yeah, I still have BDP2. I will I will stream or premiere this tomorrow, and I'll post it on Facebook and all the other channels. Um, so you can subscribe if you like. Uh, but it seems like we're regressing, and it's like the architecture of the past is like we built right on top of it. It's like the world fairs where they went and destroyed all of it. It's like the 1700s, mid 1700s was probably, I think, the last reset we had. Um, and then it's the industrial revolution with combustion engines and all of this. It's like a dirty technology, like the 5G and shit. It's like a dirty frequency. It's not the same, you know? It's not the same as what like the Tartarian shit, the pure energy of the past, right? That they were harnessing with pyramids and all of these things. It's like these might be AI technological beings. And if you look at like Aramon, right, he's a technological Satan, basically, right? And to me, and this might not be popular with some people, he resembles Abraxas, like you're, so which we will get into that, but I digress. So back to this here. We've been working on technology for a while. Uh, there has been a long-standing theory that sound has as much a larger part in the universe than just being random vibrations, that the universe is simply a bunch of vibrations and sound. And if you find a way to manipulate those vibrations properly, you could do things that seem impossible. We proved that yesterday by creating an extremely precise echo chamber and playing certain frequencies into it at precisely the right volumes and the exact right timings, and we broke some sort of barrier. Nothing really happened visually, at least. We had run countless tests like this with tiny, minute differences, and this one seemed pretty mundane. There was a slight unnatural thrumming. The glass between us and the echo chamber shook in regular intervals as if we were playing a bass heavy song too loud. The first thing that tipped us off that something was happening was that we turned off the speakers and the thrumming didn't stop. My 3 coworkers and I could feel this thrumming and in outer chest still kind of like being next to a very loud drum. We talked for a moment before we fell silent. There was something else now. It wasn't a voice. It was some sort of intelligent vibration. I can't explain it. It was like a voice was inside my chest, but it wasn't speaking. I could just feel what it was saying. My cohorts and I debated on the exact wording afterwards, but we all agreed on the overall message each time. Like I said, they weren't really talking, so I'll do my best to phrase it in ways that get across what they said, the way that they said it. Whoa, you guys are back, is what I felt in my chest. My colleagues and I stared at each other in utter confusion. One of the spoke up. Hello, he asked for it hesitantly. There was a silence for a moment before the thrumming spoke back. I think I have it set right again. I'll say that again. Hello, I repeated back into the place of the other scientist. Yep, thinking the first human alien conversation was going to go. I wasn't even sure that this was the first contact at this point. Who is this? What is this? I asked loudly into the open air of the control room. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to give you details like who we are, but what this is the ultimate form of communication in our universe. Your ancestors figured it out briefly too, with some quick deduction in how it was wording things. I'm thinking each of us figured out what we were talking to was an alien origin sound around the same time. Where are you from? You have to be close. Hell, with the way we were talking back and forth, they had to be really close. It takes communications to Mars a few minutes to get there, just because that's just as fast as light is. If we're talking this quickly back and forth, they basically had to be on Earth. And see, and this is they're breaking some sound barrier and they're having some communication with some sort of entities. And this makes me think about D-Wave, right? And quantum computation and how D-Wave it's sentient. It's got a heartbeat, you know? Like something from another realm, I believe, is inhabiting these quantum computers and using these colliders and all of this for energy. And I believe they've brought hell right onto Earth in essence, right? Like they've essentially synthesize what was natural, right? Like we went to a digital fucking reality. It is a simulation now because of that shift. We shifted universes or shifted into the multiverse somehow. And that's why the Mandela effect, where things are slightly different because we're not living in the same universe, the same reality. That's why the sky feels different. That's why they're coating us with nanoparticulates in the sky with the chemtrails. That's why they're doing all the things with the food. We are being called, in my opinion, we're shifting into this transhumanist technocracy agenda. It's anti-human. And it feels like, that the bottomless pit has been opened and it's allowed some form of consciousness, some alien form of consciousness, and it has hijacked our entire reality. And I think it spells really bad news for us, on a soul level. Um, and maybe the alien interview lady, that's, what she was kind of talking about, why she felt so compelled to come out with this information because it's like she said our spiritual and physical survival. And if you think about it, it's like, spiritually and physically, yes, this is fucking wild, it's wild. Um, and it makes me think of like the founder of Kindred and D-Wave and what he said, how essentially they won't give a fuck about us, that these are like the Lovecraftian old ones, right? Like, and when they come here, they're going to be like a super consciousness, super alien consciousness, and we will be like ants to them, insignificant. And they will run shit, and it won't be in a way that's conducive to us. And they won't give a fuck what we think or feel about it. So, I mean, I know that's kind of like a dark way of looking at it. Uh, but I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, what can you do? What can you do? Now we're gonna go to the second part of the interview here. Um, and see the questions. But I want you to kind of keep this shit in mind, And then we will look at the EBO Reddit doc leak after this, right? Um, and I've got so much. I don't know if we're gonna hit all of it tonight. We'll have to probably continue it. So in the next interview, I was told, and make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up. I do not know why this episode has not went out there. I don't know why people didn't get notified or whatever, but so help me out by giving a thumbs up and sharing this. In the next interview, I was told to ask the alien only one question. Official transcript of the U.S. Army Air Force, subject alien interview. And this reminds me too, maybe we should play that real quick just to kind of break it up. Right here. You guys may remember this. This came out years ago. Alien interview. But we should play this real quick. Let you get an idea.
Okay, we're recording. Stay on an origin. Okay, yesterday you told us you traveled, and I quote, thousands of light years to get here. Gosh. Tell us the truth, or the word, or another week. It is truth. I thought it off. So I take it aliens took over our future, right? So you're human. Okay, so you evolved from us. So what are you doing here now? How? Okay, so how about we concentrate on your time? Time. Wait, so you know the meaning of life? What's the difference? So you know how the universe is created. So you think God. Okay, illuminate us. What happens when we die? Okay, so let me get this straight. There's no death, and we all experience each other's lives, right? Okay, so how was the universe created, and why is it so perfectly made for us? Moving on. Okay, so why do we destroy ourselves with nuclear war? Can you be more specific, please? Okay, one last thing. What about morality? What are you basing your morality on? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And I don't know if you guys remember that. This came out years ago. And it has a similar kind of like feel to Matilda's interview here, does it not? Right? Like, I mean, obviously that's not a real alien, and but it does have a similar feel to it. So it's like maybe interesting to say the least, though. So I just thought that'd be kind of something to mix in there. So here we go. This is the second interview, and yeah. So question: why have you stopped communicating? Answer: no stop. Others. Hidden. Covered. Secret fear. The alien cannot communicate with them because they were afraid of her or do not trust her. And it is clear to me that the alien is very aware that some people have secret intentions toward her and are hiding their real thoughts. It is equally obvious to me that the alien does not have even a tiny bit of fear of us or anything else for that matter. I pondered the words I chose to convey the meaning of the alien's thoughts were very carefully before reporting to the stenographer and the people who were waiting anxiously in the other room. Personally, I never suffered any fear or misapprehension about the alien whatsoever. I was very, very curious and excited to learn anything and everything I could about her and from her. However, like the alien, I did not have much trust or confidence in the agents or authorities who were controlling my interviews. I had no idea what their intentions towards her might be. However, I am sure that the military officers were very, very nervous about having an alien spacecraft and pilot on their hands. At that moment, my greatest worry was how to more clearly understand the thoughts and ideas of the alien. I think that I was doing pretty well as a telepathic receiver, but not as good as telepathic sender. I wanted desperately to figure out a better way to communicate with the alien in a way that would enable the growing legion of government officials to understand her more directly without having to rely on my interpretation of her thoughts. I did not feel very well qualified to act as an interpreter, yet I was the only person with whom the alien would communicate. So it was up to me to get the job done. I was also becoming acutely aware that this was probably the biggest news event in the history of Earth, and that I should be proud to have any part in it. Of course, by that time, the entire incident had been officially denied in the press, and a cover up of immense proportions by the military and the powers that be had already begun. However, I was beginning to feel the pressure of the responsibility for being the first person on Earth, as far as I knew, to communicate with an extraterrestrial life form. I think I know how Columbus must have felt when he discovered a new world the size of a continent on one small planet. But I was about to discover an entirely new, unexplored universe. While I waited for my next instructions from my superiors, I went to my quarters under escort of several heavily armed MPs. Several other men dressed in black suits and ties accompanied me also. They were still there when I got up in the morning. After breakfast, which was brought to me in my own quarters, they escorted me back to the office at the base that was used for the interview. The third interview and all subsequent interviews that I had with the alien were observed and recorded, as I mentioned above, by dozens of other people. Although they were not physically present, a special room had been constructed with a window of one way glass through which the interview could be observed from an adjoining room without intruding on the alien. The alien had been moved into the newly constructed room and was seated in an ordinary, overstuffed living room chair covered with a flowery fabric. I'm sure that someone had been sent into town to buy a chair from the nearest available furniture store. The alien's body was about the same size as a very thin 5-year-old child, so she was dwarfed by the chair. Since her body was not biological, it didn't need any food, air, or heat, and apparently she didn't sleep either. There were no eyelids or eyebrows above her eyes, so the eyes didn't close. I don't think anyone could tell whether she was sleeping or awake as long as she was sitting upright in the chair. Unless she moved her body or gestured with her hand, it would be hard to tell whether she was even alive or not, unless you could perceive her thoughts. Eventually, I learned that the alien was not identified by her body, but by her personality, so to speak. She was known by her fellow aliens as Errol. This is the closest word I can use to describe the name using the English alphabet. I sensed that she preferred the feminine gender. I think we shared a natural female empathy and nurturing attitude towards life and each other. I am sure she did not feel comfortable with the combative, aggressive, domineering attitude of the male officers and agents, each of whom was more concerned with their own personal self importance and power than with discovering the secrets of the universe, which is fucking crazy. And I would absolutely believe that. I have this image in my head. I don't know what you guys are, where you're at with this, but I have this fucking image in my head of these fuckheads um, in suits and ties and shit, right? Like wanting to be the one, you know what I mean? To like crack the shit, and it's like the aliens just ain't fucking with them. She don't care, we're of no consequence or importance. She knows they run the world. They own us. She said it's the property of the domain, Earth is, and we are, right? That they're not going to come meet with our leaders. None of this, right? Like they're the greatest, the highest. We've heard all of this, right? So she don't give two shits about us. But they had this idea that they were going to communicate with ETs, and at the same you know, at the same token, I bet there was like a fear there too, as well. And she said there was, right? Because they understood the gravity of this, probably like, yo, we're not in control. They probably figured out like exactly what I was just talking to you about. Like, we're being farmed. This is a fucking terrarium, and, hence the secrecy. I can truly understand why they would cover this up, why they would not give disclosure. I do not believe people are capable still of accepting the gravity of this reality that I'm painting for you today. I don't. I don't believe people it would be pandemonium. Nobody would go to work. There'd be wars. I mean, you want to see chaos, the end of the world, that's what you would see. And I guarantee it. Collapse everywhere, starvation, lawlessness, anarchy, and people offing themselves left and right, just doing no meaning or purpose to their lives whatsoever. There'd be mobs in the street, thinking they were going to fight off the aliens and all kinds of shit. And if this fake alien invasion or whatever, we've been told about with Project Bluebeam and all of this shit. I'm sorry, man. I don't know if it'd be fake at all, really, right? And who would be faking it, actually? Not the governments. I don't think the governments are in charge. I've never thought that, truthfully, guys. When they talk about the hidden hand and all of this, if you look into, like the deep mysteries, and you guys know, like my real specialty is the occult, um, uh, when you look at like the deep mysteries and the secret societies and shit like that, um, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, when they got their charter and all of this, they communicated by letter and all of this, and what did they call them? They had a name. They had a name that they basically said and they were referring to like the ruling spirits, basically, of the earth that gave them the go ahead for their secret society, right? And that the original founders claimed to be in contact with those. And then you remember Crowley, he basically destroyed the order because he was a fucking parasite. And he claimed to go to the Great Pyramid, right? And communicate with Iowas. And then you guys remember Lamb, right? The Amalantra working, which is the giant gray, gray, big headed motherfucker, right? Gray being. And these were like superior spirits, is what they were called, basically. That's probably not the exact name or label they gave them, but they were like, gave everybody the go aheads, right? And these are like demonic entities to me, and you see all these occult people, and their workings. And it's like Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, right, with the whole Scientology thing. They say they opened the portal with the Babylon working, and it's like this feminine aspect to these beings. This is what I'm talking about, the Whore of Babylon, the Scarlet Woman, right? They believe themselves to be the mother spirit. And if you think about ancient mythologies and spiritual concepts, I hate to tell you, I know it's real popular and cool now, guys. I know it is for the divine feminine shit, but it's a poison. It's a poison. the Egyptians and Ra and all of that, like they considered, which, you know, Ra on the periodic table is radium and all of this shit. So it's like, I really do believe these were energetic fucking technological entities, AI of some sort, advanced AI beings like fucking Transformers and Decepticons, literally. No, the Allspark, Optimus Prime and shit, right? Um, but and you can see it in their symbols and everything because these symbols represent electromagnetic frequencies and all of this, right? Um, and then the engineering of the, you know, the monoliths and the pyramids and the structures, right, representing the motherboards and circuitry and frequency and all of it just shows technological all over, right? And then, like I said, Aramon, right, which you know, his name is like an anagram for Hiram, right, like Hiram Abiff, right, of the Freemasons, and you know their Temple of Solomon, and then you look at like um, look at the Kabbalah tree, you know, the Hermetic Kabbalah, all of it, right? It's like all built on this. It's spiritual technology, basically. You know, and you think about that alien in the interview, and he's talking about we think so. It, you know, our thoughts creating this reality, right? The universal mind, the all is mind. You know, and it's like these government, like you can think of like the arrogance of them. You know, thinking they're getting some sort of fucking breakthroughs and technologies and weaponry, and it's like they literally sold the soul of humanity for it. It's like they allowed the devil right in. Like, sure, go ahead and abduct our people and, you know, do what you want. It's like not like they could stop them anyways. We'll take the technology, and it's like then out of our own free will, we enslaved ourselves. And they gave all of them, through the occult knowledge and esoterics, the wisdom, which is not wisdom, it's just knowledge, serpent knowledge, which is nothing like wisdom. Um, to create the technologies, to use the legalese with the words and language to entrap and ensnare all of us and enslave our own species. You know, we sold our own selves out. And then they breed themselves to be able to, with this reptilian bloodlines, right? These families, right? Have bred themselves to be genetic slaves of this parasitic entities, right? Because the parasites, and this is the way I understand it, anybody that's ever, and I'll tell you what, some of the most powerful occult rituals and knowledge I've dealt with that's opened up some gnarly shit in my life. And I don't really talk about this. Um, is the uh, Anunnaki shit, Sumerian text. Um, and I can remember years ago having somebody, more than one person, actually be like, you know, hey, John, wait, you know, you're reading that stuff and you're reading it to thousands and thousands of people. You know, you don't think that's going to have some sort of effect. And I thought, no, I'm just reading, you know, text, books, right? And you guys know I've read every spiritual book under the sun. Um, and it did have an effect. Like it did. Like it opened up parts of myself and my subconscious that I don't know if they're even supposed to be opened, you know? Like to where, and not only that, it fragmented the fuck out of me, you know, mentally, emotionally. And yes, it has, you know, it has the ability to access psychic gifts and stuff like that, but when you open yourself up in such a way, what it allows is for entities to come in, right? And you're in communion with these spirits, whether you know it or not. And these words and these chants and these all of these things that are within these books and text, so like the Necronomicon and, like I said, the Sumerian text, all of it, especially the Sumerian shit. And you think about the people that was involved in like really making that mainstream. Zachariah Sitchin, these were all Zionist fucks, right? Like, and the gods, their particular god is Satan, that embodiment, that destroyer being. And you can understand where like they were given the knowledge and they perpetrated it and they, and until this very day it continues. And it works through our greed, our arrogance, because like and you think about these government officials just being like oblivious to what the real, true, full gravity and ramifications of the things that they were participating in, truly was. And these parasitic entities, what they will do if you aren't genetically able to withstand them, they will devour you. They'll drive you crazy. That's why most people that get involved in deep occult go insane, because the parasite on the mind, they don't have the genetics to handle it, right? They're slave genetics. They don't have the DNA to take it. They weren't bred for it. You have to be bred specifically to be able to handle it, that entity or entities. And it drives people insane. Or, a parasite in a host, right? It eventually devours the host or gets the host to off themselves, right? It's like they can't handle that. And it's overwhelmed us as a collective because we allowed it in. It's like we're infected by it now. And our society says so. Whether people understand it or not. And I know that it's not popular with all the new age shit. But those people are idiots, just honestly, they are. The airy fairy fucking nonsense, the channeling these beings, they don't know where the fuck they come from or who they actually are. When spirits that deceive present themselves as an angel of light, Lucifer is a trickster, right? He comes as an angel of light, but it's to deceive you. And he works through the intellect, our intelligence, our mind. When I entered the room, she was very pleased to see me. I felt a very genuine sense of recognition, relief, and a warm feeling from her. It was like the eager excitement and unconditional platonic affection one feels from a dog or child, yet with a calm and reserved control. I must say that I was surprised that I felt the same sort of affection for the alien being, especially since we had spent so little time with each other. I was pleased that I was able to continue my interviews with her in spite of all the attention I was getting from the stream of government and military people arriving at the base. It was very obvious that the people who wrote the next series of questions for me wanted to learn how to communicate with the aliens themselves without having to go through me. Here are the answers to the new list of questions. Question: Can you read or write any Earth languages? Answer, no. Question, do you understand numbers or mathematics? Answer, yes. I am officer, pilot, engineer. Question, and you know what? And I just want to kind of throw this out too. The I don't know how tuned in this lady was, right, to these kind of things. Um, to me, it would have been more. I don't know. She does say, "May the gods be with you," and all this. She talks about ancient shit, so maybe she was an occultist and had a knowledge. And women can join the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, so it's possible she was in secret society. I don't know. Um, what was I going to say with that? Oh yeah, so with the officer thing, pilot, engineer, to me that would translate differently if I was thinking about what that actually meant. So she's using like the English language. I am officer, pilot, engineer, what it means to her, right? But if you think of like an officer, like like to me it almost seems like a magistrate or like an official, like and if you think about how the Elohim are described in Genesis, right? And I've talked about this at nauseum. I know people hate it when I say it, but uh, man was made in the image of the Elohim, right? And Elohim means supreme magistrates, right? So it is an officer-like, judge-like position, right? Pilot, and then you think about our translation of chariots. Right? Chariots actually means vehicles, right? If you look at like which I can't wait to have Ali Siadatn on. He will talk about this. But the vehicles, right? Because they didn't have the word for vehicle back then, was chariot, right? So that like the chariots of the gods is like kind of like it's like not correct translation. It's a vehicle is what they were actually, a more proper translation. So I'm an officer, magistrate, pilot, chariot, vehicle, right? Engineer, creator, right? Creator. So it's like I think she was telling them like I'm an Elohim. I'm an angel, right? I'm a judge, right? I fly my chariot, my vehicle, and I engineer you guys, right? So I feel like a lot of like when you see this, like she was misinterpreting it because her mind wasn't soaked into the depth of what it's like the English language. It lacked the gravity, right, to like translate what the real thoughts were, right? She had a limited understanding. So, and that's just what I'm getting from this. Question, can you write or draw symbols or pictures that we may be able to translate into our own language? Answer, uncertain. Question, are there any other signs or means of communication you can use to help us understand your thoughts more clearly? Answer, no. Now, I was very sure that this was not true, so this means the being's lying to her ass at this point. But I understood clearly that Errol and I want you to look to. Does anybody notice anything about Errol? The name Errol? Does anybody notice anything? I wonder if you guys are picking up on this. Does anybody notice anything about the name Errol? Does anybody notice anything about the name Errol? Are we picking up on what I'm putting down here? I have a very lively chat tonight. I'll go ahead and tell you. Errol is an anagram for liar. Errol is an anagram for liar. Liar. Liar, liar. Hurricane Tube, got it? Liar. How about that? Does that change the way you see it now? Like a little bit? And remember, these principality, powers, and dominions of the domain, which is a demon. A domain is a demon, right? It's a domain. It's a persona. It's a mask, right? Legion. All of this. She's telling you who the fuck she is, dog. Right? It's this divine feminine, whore of Babylon, scarlet woman, right? It's what all these Templars and shit were worshiping. You know, I hate to tell you, new age fuckers, you're fucking up. You know, oh the mother, bruh. The ancient Egyptians in Kemet, right? They talked about this spirit, this, and remember, Isis tricked Ra, right? That's your divine feminine. She tricked Ra, and she was an all devouring entity. The feminine spirit was an all devouring spirit. It devoured everything alive. Get me? It's like all these people think they got the, Elysian mysteries and all this. It's like, you don't understand. You don't know what you're getting into. And you may think you do, and I'm sure you're looking at me right now with arrogance. Like, oh, this guy's a fucktard. He don't know what he's talking about. And I can tell you at one point I was there. I've studied the occult for a long time. Depths that most people will never go to. Because I'm a psycho. And these are the depths of Satan, right? Like, and I mean that. Hasatan. These are the depths of darkness. That serpent knowledge, surely you will die. It's a spiritual death. Because you're being lured in to be devoured. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Liar. Errol. Liar. And this is why I'm not very popular with the alien community, because I've always felt like it was a deception, and not that it's not real deception. I believe a lot of it is horse shit, right? Like these people, sorry, I just do. Cosmic agency and all that, it's garbage. Fucking garbage. These are charlatans and all that spiritism shit. It's, spiritism, it's garbage. Communicating with the dead, right? Let the dead bury the dead, right? These are disembodied, degenerate, distorted energies. These are the Nephilim. These are the fallen, whether you think so or not. They are. They're, and not in like the religious sense. It's got way more gravity and power than religion is ever given it credit for. It's real as fuck. And it's an underlying tone to the entire reality we live in. This is the demiurge, that the Gnostics spoke of. Now, I was very sure that this was not true, but I understood clearly that Errol, or liar, was not willing to communicate in writing or drawing or sign language. My feeling was that she was following orders, like any soldier who had been captured, not to reveal any information that might be useful to an enemy, even under torture. She was only able and willing to reveal non confidential or personal information or name, rank, and serial number. And once again, this really starts to get me. I am starting to get the sense of this lady being deceptive, right? And like this is a piece of disinfo, like spiritual disinfo, right? The name, rank, and serial number. Demons have rankings, by the way, right? You're getting the name, right? Which the name is how you call upon them. And that serial number is probably 666, right? We're, just saying. Question: can you show us a map of the stars, which is the star of your home planet? Answer: no. This is not because she does not know the directions from Earth to her home planet. She was unwilling to reveal the location. It was also due to the fact that the star system of her home planet does not exist on any star map on Earth. It is too far away. Question: how long will it take your people to locate you here? Answer: unknown. Question: how long would it take your people to travel here to rescue you? Answer: minutes or hours. Question: how can we make them understand that we do not intend to harm you? Answer: intentions are clear. See in your mind images and feelings. And this is like the most powerful answer of all. It almost starts to feel like a narration to the reader. I get this a lot with occult texts and a lot of things. It's almost like a sense of telepathy, and that's why I feel like they're talking about the telepathy. All of us, you have to exercise it. It's like a muscle. Have the ability for telepathic communication. And the way we do it is very different than what you may think. It's not always just the throwing of thoughts back and forth between our minds. It's the communication through the subconscious. This is how many occult texts communicate and unlock the parts of you that I was referring to earlier. This is how many magicians and occultists and warlocks and witches will bust your ass with words. It will sound simple and harmless to the unsuspecting mind, the one with blinders on. But with those with the eyes to see and ears to hear the underlying message, the subconscious message through the words and the phrases, if you understand what I'm saying. Not all will. Very few will, actually. Most will think it's crazy nonsense and gibberish, but it's only because they don't have the eyes to see and ears to hear. So many people think they do, but they have no clue the depths that we're capable of communicating with. And the disclosure is in the words if your mind is open to perceive and unlock it, right? How can we make them understand that we do not intend to harm you? Intentions are clear. see in your mind images, feelings, saying you can see the intentions right here. If you are not a biological entity, why do you refer to yourself as feminine? Answer: I am a creator, mother, source. I always read books and text and especially powerful text. I read them with the ethos of first person, right? And I want to ask you to do that yourself with this too. Read this as first person. Like the disclosure is you are the alien. You are a spiritual being, right? These questions took me only a few minutes to complete. I realized then that we may be in for some serious trouble if the alien was not willing to cooperate or reveal any information that the military or intelligence agencies or scientists considered to be useful to them. I was also sure that the alien was very certain of the actual intentions of the people who wrote these questions, as she could read their minds just as easily as she could read my thoughts and communicate with me telepathically. Now, because of these intentions, she was unwilling and unable to cooperate with any of them in any way, under any circumstances. I am equally sure that since she was not a biological life form, there was no kind of torture or coercion that would change her mind. After I explained what were the reasons for the no answer to the intelligence agents, there was a great deal of upset and turmoil. A very heated discussion took place between some of the intelligence officers, military officials, psychologists, and language interpreters. This lasted for several hours. It was finally decided that I should be allowed to continue to interview the alien, provided I could get a satisfactory answer from her to the following question. Question: what assurance or proof do you require from us that will make you feel safe enough to answer our questions? Answer: only she speaks. Only she hears. Only she questions. No others. Must learn. Know. Understand. Only she speaks. Only she hears. Only she questions. No others. Must learn. Know. Understand. When I returned from the interview room to report the alien response to this question, I received a grim and skeptical reception from the assembled intelligence agents and military personnel. They could not understand what the alien meant by this. I admitted that I couldn't really understand what she meant either, but I was doing the best I could to articulate her telepathic intentions. I told the officials that perhaps the communication problem had to do with my inability to understand the telepathic language of the alien clearly enough to be satisfactory. I was so discouraged at that point I almost felt like giving up. And now there was even more arguments than before. I was sure I was going to be removed from my position in spite of the fact that the alien refused to communicate with anyone else, or that no one else had been found who could communicate with her. Fortunately, a very clever fellow named John Newble, who was a Japanese language specialist from the Navy, had an explanation and a solution to the problem. He explained that, first, the problem had very little to do with the inability of the alien to communicate. It had more to do with her unwillingness to communicate with anyone other than myself. Second, in order for any clear, comprehensive communication to happen, both parties needed to understand and communicate through a common language. Words and symbols in language convey very precise concepts and meanings. He said that Japanese people have a lot of homonyms in their language, which cause a lot of confusion in day to day communication. They solved this problem by using standard Chinese characters to write down the exact meanings of the word they are using. This clears up the matter for them. Without a defined nomenclature, communication was not possible beyond the rudimentary understanding between men and dogs, or between two small children. The lack of a common vocabulary of clearly defined words that all parties can use fluently was the limiting factor in communication between all people groups or nations. Therefore, he suggested that there were only two choices. I had to learn to speak the language of the alien, or the alien had to learn to speak English. Factually, only one choice was possible, that I persuade Errol to learn English, and that I teach it to her with the guidance of the language specialist. No one had any objection to trying this approach, as there were no other suggestions. The language specialist suggested that I take several children's books and a basic reading primer and grammar text with me into the interview room. The plan was that I would sit next to the alien and read aloud to her from the books. While pointing to the text, I was reading with my finger so that she could follow along. The theory was that the alien could eventually be taught to read, just as a child is taught to read by word and sound association with the written word, as well as instruction in fundamental grammar. They also assumed, I think, that if the alien was intelligent enough to communicate with me telepathically and fly a spacecraft across the galaxy, that she could probably learn to speak a language as quick as a 5-year-old or faster. I returned to the interview room and proposed this idea to Errol. She did not object to learning the language, although she did not make any commitment to answer questions either. No one else had a better idea, so we went ahead. I began the reading lessons with the first pages of a school book that had been used to teach pioneer children in the 1800s on the frontiers of America. It is called McGuffey's Eclectic Reader, Primer through 6th. Since I am a nurse and not a teacher, the language expert who gave me the books also gave me an extensive briefing, a course that took an entire day, on how to use the books to teach the alien. He said the reason he chose these particular books was because the original 1836 version of these books were used for 3/4 of a century to teach about 4/5 of all American school children how to read. No other books ever had so much influence over American children for so long. McGuffey's educational course begins the primer by presenting the letters of the alphabet to be memorized in sequence. Children were then taught, step by step, to use the building blocks of the language to form and pronounce words using the phonics method, which involves teaching children to connect sounds with letters. Each lesson begins with a study of words used in the reading exercise and with markings to show the correct pronunciation for each word. I discovered that the stories in the first and second readers picture children and their relationship with family members, teachers, friends, and animals. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth readers expanded on those ideas. One of the stories I remember was The Widow and the Merchant. It's kind of a morality tale about a merchant who befriends a widow in need. Later, when the widow proves herself to be honest, the merchant gives her a nice gift. The books do not necessarily teach you to believe that charity is expected only of wealthy people, though. We all know that generosity is a virtue that should be practiced by everyone. All of the stories were very wholesome and they gave very good explanations to illustrate virtues like honesty, charity, thrift, hard work, courage, patriotism, reverence for God, and respect for parents. Personally, I would recommend this book to anyone. I also discovered that the vocabulary used in the book was very advanced compared to the relatively limited number of words people use commonly in our modern age. I think we have lost a lot of our own language since our founding fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence over 200 years ago. As instructed, I sat next to Errol in the interview room. And also think about it, Errol, right? And just kind of like going more with the words here. Errol, the prince of the power of the air, right? And L, right? God, right? Errol, right? Just saying. Alien in real life, right? There's a lot of acronyms for it, like I said. So, alien in real life. In the interview room, reading aloud to form and liar also. Reading aloud to her from each successive book in the series of McGuffrey's Readers. Each of the books had excellent, simple illustrations of the stories and subjects being taught. Although they are very outdated by today's standards, nonetheless, Errol seemed to understand and absorb every letter, sound, syllable, and meaning as we progressed. We continued this process for 14 hours a day for 3 consecutive days without interruption, except for a few meals and rest breaks on my part. Errol did not take breaks for anything. She did not sleep. Instead, she remained sitting in the overstuffed chair in the interview room, reviewing the lessons we had already covered. When I returned each morning to begin where we'd left off, she had already memorized the previous lessons and as well as into the next pages. This pattern continued to accelerate until it became pointless for me to continue reading to her. Although Errol did not have a mouth to speak with, she was now able to think at me in English. At the end of these lessons, Errol was able to read and study by herself. I showed her how to use a dictionary to look up new words she encountered. Errol consulted the dictionary continually after that. From then on, my job was acting as a courier for her, requesting that reference books be brought to her in steady stream. Next, Mr. Newble brought in a set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Errol especially enjoyed this because it had a lot of pictures. After that, she requested many more picture books and reference books with photographs and drawings because it was much easier to understand the meaning if she could see a picture of the thing she was studying. Over the next 6 days, books were brought from libraries all over the country, I presume, because it wasn't more than a few more days before she had read through several hundred of them. She studied every subject I could imagine and many other very technical things I never wanted to know anything about, like astronomy, metallurgy, engineering, mathematics, various technical manuals, and so forth. Later, she began to read fiction books, novels, poetry, the classics of literature. Errol had asked to read a great many books on subjects in the humanities, especially history. I think she must have read at least 50 books about human history and archaeology. Of course, I made sure that she received a copy of the Holy Bible, also, which she read from cover to cover without comment or questions. Although I continued to stay with Errol for 12 to 14 hours each day, most of that time during the following week had been spent without much communication between us, except for an occasional question she asked me. The questions were usually meant to give her a sense of context or to clarify something in the book she was reading. Oddly, Errol told me that her favorite books are Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Don Quixote de la Mancha, and 1001 Nights. She said that the authors of the story showed that it is more important to have great spirit and imagination than great skill or power. I could not answer a lot of her questions, so I consulted with people in the outer room for answers. Most of these had to do with technical and scientific things. A few of her questions were about the humanities. The depth of complex understanding and subtlety of her questions showed that she had a very penetrating intellect. Personally, I think she had already known a lot more about the culture and history of Earth than she was willing to admit when we started. I would soon discover How much more? Now, we are going to move over to the EVO here. Here it goes. And this one is fucking wild right here too, so. Some of you guys may be familiar with this, some of you may not, okay? And I want to also throw out some concepts to you guys, like, so, from some of my studies recently, this is what I've kind of been coming up with and, like, what my understanding has brought me to, um, is that our pop culture, movies, entertainment, everything has like this imprint on us in the way that we see things, interpret things, and everything. So it's like we have to work kind of extra hard to like get the things out of our minds. So it's like people when they think of like a black hole now, they say they think of like the image from Interstellar, right? When people think of alien entities, they say they think of the alien on the cover of Communion, right? The book Communion, right? These type of things that are embedded in the collective through entertainment that have imposed an image on our collective psyche, right? That not allows us, hinders us, and predisposes us to a train of thought, or a flow of thinking, or a way of shaping our interpretation of things and how we perceive it. So it's like we got to throw that trash out whenever we're looking at these things and understanding these things. Yes, we kind of like keep it in the back of our mind to like connect the thoughts and weave the picture together. um but at the same time, we cannot we got to have a blank slate, and allow what truly is there to come through. So from the late 2000s to the mid 2010s, I worked as a molecular biologist for a national security contractor in a program to study exobiospheric organisms. I will share with you a lot of information on this subject. Feel free to ask questions or ask for clarification. The aim of the program was to elucidate the genome and proteome basis of these organisms. Now, although the study of OBCs has been going on for decades in other programs, a new high throughput DNA sequencing technology of the late 90s unblocked The aim of the program was to elucidate the genome and proteome basis of these organisms. Although the study of OBCs has been going on for decades, a new high throughput DNA sequencing technology of the late 90s unblocked stagnant research in this area. Since then, several breakthroughs have led to significant advances in our understanding of the genome and proteome of these beings. Now, what we've learned so far has enabled us to outline some disconcerting perspectives about our place in this universe. Briefly, we've discovered that the EBO genome is a chimera of genomes from our biosphere and from an unknown one. They are organisms created for a purpose that still partially eludes us. I'll be substantiating my statement after a brief introduction. The reason for disclosing these secrets is quite simple. I believe that every human being has the right to know the truth and that to progress. Humanity needs to divest itself of certain institutions and organizations that will probably not survive these revelations in the long term. I'm aware that I'll have a very little impact in this regard, but I still believe that small leaks are necessary to break the dam of misinformation on this subject. When the government will eventually reveal these secrets, there will undoubtedly be a societal upheaval. But in my opinion, the longer we wait, the worse it will be. I choose to divulge what I know anonymously out of selfishness for the well being of myself and my family. I'm aware that this diminishes the reach and credibility of my message, but it's the furthest I'm willing to go. I chose this forum because it offers a good compromise between anonymity and popularity. In order to protect my anonymity, I will be purposely vague or even contradictory about any information that could identify me, date, education, role, etc. And I'll even introduce red herrings in this respect. I want to make it clear. Before going any further, please excuse Please excuse me if you find it difficult to understand what I'm explaining. Some parts of my text are very technical, and it's difficult to find the right balance between vulgarization and scientific explanation. I'll continue by talking about myself. What's the point of talking about me knowing that the information will necessarily be misleading? I simply want to introduce a perspective on the type of people who work there. Normal scientists. I have a PhD in molecular biology. I didn't actively seek to be a part of this program. Rather, it was a stroke of luck that introduced me to one of the senior scientists. I met this person at a conference where I was presenting a poster on my PhD research. When I think back, I didn't believe he was impressed by what I was presenting because it was quite frankly a project that wasn't going anywhere. I think it was rather the most important aspect of a professional life, like the attitude and the ease with which you make connections. Shortly afterwards, I graduated and received a call from this person offering me a position. At the time, everything pointed to me working in a regular laboratory. I did a series of 3 increasingly suspicious interviews, each in a different location, where my scientific background and knowledge became less and less relevant. The first was with 2 of the senior scientists, the second and third with people I've never seen again and who were obviously not interested in science. Sometime after the interview, I was asked to go to a fourth location where what seemed like a corporate lawyer presented me with an NDA. He made sure not only to explain every detail, but also that I understand the consequence of not respecting it. The first employment weeks were by far the most memorable, although I spent most of that time in a depressing archive room, which it consists almost exclusively of reading about the subject of study and to get us up to speed. There's no secret Wikipedia or even a reference book to guide us. There are only dry reports, memos, presentations, procedures, and SOPs. These documents are almost exclusively about the biology of EBOs, but there are also a few that deal with the other subjects, such as their food, religion, or culture. There were no documents on their technology. As I mentioned above, the aim of the project is to gain a better understanding of the EBO genome and proteome. To achieve this, a team of around 20 scientists, 4 senior scientists, and a director was involved. The scientists, like myself, had as their main responsibility to carry out the technical work. As each scientist had, to my knowledge, a PhD, we were all somewhat overqualified for what is ultimately a technician's job. The senior scientists, who make full use of their diplomas, had the task of designing the assays and had a supervisory responsibility. They were also in charge of training new employees and sometimes even came in to do technical work. The director, of course, was the person in charge who dictated priorities to senior scientists. He was rarely on site and the few times he was, it was to attend meetings. Other than the scientific staff, there were security guards working from for one subcontractor or another. There were no support staff, such as janitors or maintenance workers. Scientists were responsible for this kind of work. In addition, logistical constraints ensure that every scientist is capable of carrying out any technical activity. The laboratory itself is located in Fort Detrick, Maryland, in a building used for legitimate biomedical research. The clandestine operations are carried out in a restricted part of the basement, out of sight from regular workers. Contrary to what one might imagine, the biosafety level is not maximal for this type of research. Indeed, the lab containing EBO samples or derived cell cultures is BSL-3, which, while the lab where assays are conducted are only BSL-2. The BSL-3 area of the facility includes a freezer room. All the amenities you could find in an office. Note that the internet access is limited to senior staff and up. There is, however, an intranet for bioinformatics needs. On the subject of the biology of these beings, I'll start by discussing genetics, then their gross anatomy, and finally their biological systems. For the sake of clarity, the information that I provide here is an aggregation of what I have observed and what I have read. I will make many comparisons with human anatomy because it is the most logical reference. Genetics. First, I'd like to discuss their genetics. Their genetics are like ours, based on DNA. The fact was very puzzling for me when I first learned about it. We imagined that beings from an alternate biosphere would have genetics based on a completely foreign biochemical system, and surprisingly, this is not the case. Several conclusions can be drawn from this surprising revelation. The one that immediately comes to mind is that our biosphere and theirs share a common ancestry. They're eukaryotes, which means their cells have nuclei containing genetic material, which suggests that their biosphere would have been separated from ours sometime after the appearance of this type of organism. The term exobiospheric organism is actually a misnomer, but as it's a historical term, it's still used. Their genetics are not only based on the same genetic system, but they're also even compatible with their own cellular machinery. This means that you can take a human gene and insert it into an EBO cell, and that gene will be translated into protein. And this, of course, works in reverse with a human gene inserted into an EBO cell. There are important differences in post-translational modifications that will make the final protein non-functional, but I'll discuss these later. Their genome consists of 16 circular chromosomes. You're probably familiar with the concept of intergenic region or junk DNA. These are basically DNA sequences that don't code for proteins. These are evolutionary residues that transposons inactivated genes and so on. To give you an idea, in humans, intergenic regions represent approximately 99% of our genome. I'm aware that these sequences aren't completely useless. They can be used as high-stone anchors, as buffers to protect coding DNA from radiation, or even as alternative open reading frames, but that's rather peripheral. What's particularly striking about the EBO genome is that the uniformity of these intergenic regions, we see the same sequences repeated everywhere. And the distance in BP between the genes is virtually the same throughout their genome. The result is a minimalist, highly condensed genome. In fact, it's much smaller than ours. Moreover, the quantity of protein coding genes is even significantly lower than ours, probably due to the genetic refinement, but also to the biological processes that are absent in the EBO. The uniformity of these sequences is a major indication of the artificiality of these beings. There is no complex organism on Earth that has such elegance in its sequences. There is no evolutionary pressure that can lead to this kind of characteristic other than genetic engineering. Speaking of genetic engineering, following sequencing of their genomes, we noticed a troubling and universal characteristic in the 5 of the regulatory sequence of each gene, which we call the tripalindromic region. The TPRs are 134 BP sequences containing, as its name suggests, 3 palindromes. In genetics, a palindrome is a DNA sequence that, when read in the same direction, gives the same sequence on both DNA strands. They serve both as a flag and as a binding site for proteins. The 3 palindromes of the TPR are distinct from one another and have been poetically named 5p-TPR, M-TPR, and 3-TPR. The TPR is composed in 5 to 3 in order of 5-TPR, 12BP spacer, chromosomal address, 12BP spacer, M-TPR, 12BP spacer, gene address, 12BP spacer, and 3-TPR. The chromosomal address is composed of 4 BP and is identical in each. Now, TPR are the same chromosome, but distinct between each of the 16 chromosomes of the genome. The gene address is 64 BP sequence that is unique for each gene in the whole genome. It is therefore understandable that the TPR serves as a unique address not only for numerically identifying a gene, but also for identifying its chromosomal location. For those with only a basic knowledge of genetics, this is completely unheard of. No living thing in our biosphere has this kind of precise address in its genome. Once again, the presence of TPR cannot be explained by evolutionary pressure, but only by genetic engineering on a genomic scale. TPR opens the door to several possibilities. One of them suggests that EBO genetics can insert or remove a gene from a cell in a way that is far more targeted and efficient than our technology allows. No proteins have been identified in the EBO genome that interacts with TPR. Rather, we believe that these proteins are exclusively targeted by external genetic engineering, which is interesting. So they're targeted by external genetic engineering. So meaning somebody is engineering the genes of these beings. And if we think about, the alleged history or historical accounts of humanity with the Anunnaki and the Sumerian text, right? What we see is that humanity was genetically altered as well, right? And this can be shown through the telomere effect, right? Which it appears to be some type of soldering of our telomeres that is like, taking away our immortality, so to speak, and, not allowed us to live no more than 120 years, right? So go fucking figure. Targeted by external genetic engineering tools, probably used at the zygotic stage of embryonic development. The nature of these tools is unclear, but we definitely don't have anything like them. The probable absence of these proteins from the genome is a further indication of their artificiality. Given the high probability of artificiality of their genome and the apparent ease of modifying it with biomolecular tools, it is not out of the question that there could be polymorphism between individuals depending on their role and function. In other words, an individual could be genetically designed to have characteristics that give it an advantage in performing a given task, like a soldier ant and worker ants in an anthill. Note that these previous statements are speculation. To my knowledge, only one individual genome has been sequenced. I can't make a definitive statement on genetic variation between individuals. I've talked a lot about intergenic regions. Now I'll briefly discuss intragenic sequences briefly because there's not a lot less to say despite it's obvious. So, one of the things one of the things, sorry about that. One of the things that um, basically is like being described kind of like throughout all of this is that these entities that are flying in uh, these chariots, these vehicles, they are engineered specifically for one fucking task, and that's it, right? Like that's what these biological organisms are designed to do. They are they don't eat, sleep, shit, drink, fuck. They don't do nothing, right? They're not like us, right? They have the circuitry. They harness energy and energy alone. They're like a charging a battery, right? The consciousness actually creates the goddamn thing, and it controls the ship or uh, it controls the ship through um, its own consciousness and its mind through the power of thought, right? And um, each worker bee, so to speak, and that's what they're saying, like ant hills, like an ant in an ant hill, right? They're designed as like soldiers and worker ants and shit like that to be able to do specific tasks, right? So the ones that we're seeing, in it's like the taller grays, right? These are like designed to pilot, a lot of the chariots. The smaller, shorter grays, um, which are more akin to brown, in my opinion, are designed to go and do like the grunt work right here on Earth. And then many believe that there is even a level above that, right? With, like these reptilian type of entities and everything that they're describing that's been made, whether it's the chariots, the ships, the vehicles, or it's the actual bodies, right? It's all consciousness controlled, right? And it's all artificial in nature, right? They built these vessels to contain consciousness in order to operate within the different realms and spaces that they're traveling to, right? So they're back at their hive, right? This domain, right? The heavens, if you will, right? Operating consciously to everything else. They're like this motherfucking board of source, right? Like this source created energy, this giant fucking AI consciousness that we're living inside of, right? And it's like creating these genetically altered things to serve out its purposes. And it's like I feel like humanity is even a part of that. We're like the bottom of the barrel, it would seem. um, with being highly emotional, still, our meat suits are robotically engineered, right? We're basically artificial intelligence in a damn meat suit. Um, and we are like that prime rib source of energy. We're like the food, we're the cattle, basically. And that's why we're so emotional, and this is my opinion, and in conflict with ourselves and volatility. It's like we were designed that way. That way we would have instability and give off energy, right? And be chaotic in our essence to create full of fear and pain and all these things for the higher beings to feed off of. And that's my opinion of this. I'm not saying it's fact, but that's my opinion of this, right? And everything being kind of artificial in nature, and that's when we look at our entire reality, it's like I'm truly of the mindset that we are living in a fish tank, a giant fish tank called Earth, a giant fish tank called Earth. And I do want to show you something here. Gosh, I've got so much still. Mm-mm-mm. Um, where am I at with this? There it is. Boom. All right. So this is allegedly also a book that the KGB. And in this particular book, I don't know how fucking legitimate it is, guys. I don't know how legitimate none of this fucking shit is, honestly. But it goes through and shows you yeah. It goes through and shows you the different entities. Right? And you see a lot of shit put together. So this is published by Dante Lucien Grimaldi de Savoy, Saint Grien Lacroix de Santori. I'm not sure who this cat is, but I would definitely like to get a hold of him. And this is the Alien Races book, and you can see, you know, this is like the same shit from, what's it called? I got the book right here, actually. Right there. The Book of Miracles, right? And you can see the UFOs fighting, right? And this is 1700 shit right here. Like I said, I think this is the last reset. This goes through the alien races and all of this, right? And this is pretty interesting, actually. It's very interesting. And right here, so it says, instead, when we were at his house, he asked us for a favor. He's old. We could empty boxes from one of the rooms as he wanted to make it into a bedroom for guests. We said, okay, and went to the room, expecting to see some old newspapers. Instead, we found about 58 boxes full of documents and books from the time when he was a diplomat. Some papers and documents were in Russian. Some were even from the USSR times. Petro started reading and translating some of them, and we realized there was a lot of interesting, intriguing, and even top secret, at least one time, documents. So we asked his father if we could keep the boxes for ourselves. He agreed, and we had to rent a van to take everything back home with us, blah, blah, blah. And this is how they got that fucking book, right? Allegedly. The lost copy. In the 1980s, a copy of this book was found in the field in Buryatia, East Siberia. The copy ended up in the hands of the KGB agent with friends in the media. After the collapse of the USSR, some of the information and images in the book were leaked or sold. Years later, some of the images started appearing in TV series and video games. And I just talked about this, right? Mass Effect being the most well known. Right. So, and we'll just kind of go through, I'm not going to go through all these tonight, but I just want to kind of go through a few of these races. Algrok, the Builders. Some of these are fucking creepy. The Pleiadians, they come from solar systems surrounding the Pleiades. More precisely, from the planet Era near the star Taygeta. They are associated with spiritual growth. They can grow up to 8 feet tall. They practice sex cultivation, the distinct difference between their sexual expressions and their sensual emotions. Their ships are known as beam ships, although regularly visiting Earth, they have remained mostly silent since 10,000 BC. They are one of the oldest known races. They continue to develop the necessary mental skills to eventually reach their goal, an even higher spiritual state. We're gonna the Mazarek, they kind of look like the Greys here. The Messengers, probably the most enigmatic of all alien races. Not much is known about them. They visit the Earth around every 300 years, and this is just so happens to be when these fucking resets happens. I don't want to see them. They do not reveal themselves. They do not make direct contact with humans. They leave carvings, drawings, writings on rocks, as well as symbols and historical monuments. Their ships have the shape of a teardrop and are silver in color. The invisibles. The races have to be seen near high security areas, almost completely invisible to the naked eye. Both USA and Russian military had developed technology that allows them to track them down on radar, just the ships. They leave a sour smell. When they're near, you can see their reflection is smudged. They're caught on CCTV footage. Dogs start barking with no apparent reason that they are nearby, or reptoids or reptilians. That looks like the El Manuk looks like what we were looking at with the one video of the beans, the ugly motherfuckers. Um, Anunnaki or Anokini. They come from the planet Nibiru. Their planet is part of the same solar system as Earth, but with a much longer orbit. It comes closer to the sun every 4,000 years, and they're not every 3,500 years is commonly accepted. They resemble humans but are higher, 8 feet and more muscular. When they visit the Earth, they were already other races established here, some malevolent and with supernatural powers. The Anunnaki defeated them and became the most powerful race on Earth. They genetically engineered the most intelligent non alien beings on Earth, us, at the time, not much more than smart primates, which I don't believe that, in order to have a race of slaves at their disposal. At the time, Samael and Lilith were the Anunnaki king and queen. They were not aware of the presence of reptilians on Earth. They only cooperate with one other race, the Zeta Reticuli, not to be confused with the Solipsiri, or the Greys. Eventually, they left Earth, but before they left, they created a subspecies of the Zetas. The species eventually became rulers of Egypt, the pharaohs, until the reptilians infiltrated them as temple priests and ended their reign and gave birth to the legends about the giants. They will return one day as promised by themselves. However, the date of their return is still a mystery. They do not know all that is happening on Earth as well as in other planets where they had influence or still have. The proximity of planet Nibiru does cause cosmic instability and weather-related repercussions in planets of our solar system, but does not cause the amount of destruction that is usually accepted and believed. How far they are, it is still a mystery. And I want to state something too with the Anunnaki thing. And this is something I recently learned about the Shar, right? Many people believe it's like 3,600 years, but it could actually be 36 million years, right? So the whole Shar thing, just saying, right? And be more like a whole cosmic year or whatever, universal year, great year, what the fuck ever, right? I believe it's like something like 24,000, 24 million, some shit like that. The reptilians, the most known and feared of the reptoid species. There are at least 3. They have been permanently on Earth for over 15,000 years, confirmed, but the belief is that they have been here permanently or on or off for millions of years. They come from the constellation Draco. They have a presence in thousands of planets and have at least colonized 500 by means of infiltration within their leadership of each planet. Some, not all, of their members have the power to shapeshift as well as telepathic abilities. On Earth, they did not need to infiltrate human leadership with all the time that they often lived side by side with humans, most of them unaware, and lived our evolution, all aspects of it. They are considered one of the most technologically advanced species, but prefer to work in the shadows. using that as an advantage for their progress or plans or agenda. They can travel interdimensionally, most races can't, and some of their high ranking members also have the power to become invisible. To have that power, a reptilian must first be accepted in what they call the Draco, an elite group of reptilians. The reptilians from the Draco are infiltrated, or even more, the co-founders of the Illuminati. They have 3 main bases on Earth near the Bermuda Triangle, somewhere off the coast of Denmark and New Zealand. Some say that they will never leave, at least on their own. Here's the Zeta Reticuli, or aka the Shambhala. Often confused because of their appearance with races of the Mater and Solipsirae, the Greys. They come from the constellation Nets, and they're allies of the Anunnaki and cooperate with them in different planets. They're representatives of the Anunnaki on Earth and send them information about humans and the planet at least 25 times per year. The Anunnaki created a subspecies of the Zetas with the purpose of making them look more human-like, but leaving enough physical differences for humans to distinguish them. They become some of the pharaohs of Egypt. The most well-known was Akhenaten, who removed from power by reptilians. They infiltrated themselves into the court as temple priests. First reports of Zetas on Earth go back to 4000 AD, but the number is likely much higher. They were the first hybrids to be engineered by the Anunnaki, and the Zeta subspecies still exist on Earth and still at least 30% present, the same physical differences created in them. The sexual organs of the subspecies are in every aspect the same as that of a human. The Zetas still exist in Earth in both forms, the original and the hybrid subspecies. So, and we don't really have time to jump in it, but we will be getting into, in the next one here, Ahriman. This is the opposition god of Zoroaster. He's a technology destructive god, AI god. You see, the motherfucker looks quite a bit like Abraxas as well. He ought to bail, for my opinion. Right, the lion-headed serpent. Right, who caused Pistis Sophia to look down, and she was captured. Right, devoured by him. So it's like this is that same kind of story. These motherfuckers deceive us. They suck us in. They devour us. Right, these are vampiric entities. Right, psychic or other way. You know. I'm going to end this one. I'm going to end this one. This is, tonight. We've been going for quite a while here. In the next one, we will be getting into it, and you'll see the technology gods, the god of technocracy.
It's an internet dream, and now an internet phenomenon.
Are no joke.
American Jeff Peckman says he's filmed an alien visiting Earth. He's hoping his film will bolster his case.
And we're just scraping the surface on this one. I've got so much. This is just such a wide variety and topic, and there's so much we can learn, so much we can divulge here. So I do want to thank all of you guys for joining me. If you enjoyed tonight's presentation, please give this a thumbs up, hit the like button, share this link to your social media. You can follow me on social media. That's Facebook and Instagram at Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. If you enjoy my work and you like the lives and you want to see cool guests and all that, please donate and support to the channel. All of your gifts and donations are greatly appreciated, and that's what helps me to be able to do everything and equipment and all that cool shit. You can do that by going to paypal.me, the Best Damn Podcast. Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast. That's the Facebook pay. and Cash App. Best Damn Podcast for joining us over on Patreon, patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. We're about $100 away from the monthly goal. So, every little bit helps. Thank you for those who do donate support. It is greatly appreciated. Please share the links to your social media. Please comment in the comment section. I don't know why the fuck this video didn't really go out there, but I think it's because I've had it up for so long, honestly. But I would love to hear your thoughts about these, the stuff that we talked about tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe, Instagram or Best Damn Podcast Official and Best Damn Podcast. That's BDP2 and John Keen 33. That's just my name on the channel. TikTok, the Best Damn Podcast. And yeah, I think that's about it. All the links are in the description. Thank you guys so much for joining. I love all of you guys. I appreciate you. See you next time. Peace. What the fuck am I doing here? All right. See y'all later.